become a creature of the night, ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change, this body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast, hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. I'm still inside, I'm still here. What have I done? When did this all start? I have become a monster in the dark, a hunger like no other, running on instinct. Was this creature always inside of me? The pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night, ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change, this body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. A hunger's arising inside of me. The beast is alive and break it free. It's time to be human, think human, feel human. Keep putting more chains on the beast, hope it don't break loose. You better hope so too. Whoa, you better hope so too. Whoa, you better hope so too.
All right, folks. Got a little bit of a later start than we wanted to. We wanted to come on at 8:30, but forgive me. I've been moving. We've been moving. We have storage units. You never know what you got in those storage units, man. Me, Anthony, Tony, and Anthony's brother, and the Scorpion. We were digging through, and we were finding some cool stuff. We found kites.
Yeah. Stuff we forgot we had.
I mean, I was like, when did we use these? And somebody said we used them on the beach. I don't remember that. Were we on the beach using kites? I remember we bought some kites, and then we had the boogie boards.
Yeah.
And
we used the boogie boards.
We used the boogie boards, and then a shark swam underneath me. Okay, well, it was a fish about this big, but when you're in the ocean, it's a great white. It doesn't matter what it is.
Whatever brushes up against your leg.
It's a tiger shark. It's a killer. It's a man eater. You don't know. I mean, you're scared if you're me. Like, I'm real brave, and then I get in the water, and I'm like, ah, ah, ah. And then I scream like a girl. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know,
seaweed brushes against my leg. I'm panicking.
Yeah, you're being attacked by a man of war.
Yeah,
the jellyfish has entered your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to devour your lungs.
We're all gonna die.
You're already gone. I'm gone. It's over.
Like immediately.
In an alternate reality, we've all been eaten by great whites.
The moment you touch that salt water, you're already in the afterlife.
You know what's funny is we have stuff everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I sat down on one of the chairs, which is new. We have new furniture, some new furniture, some old furniture. It was one of the new ones. And I go, what is that? It's something, like sticking out between my thighs over here, or on the side of my thigh. Mm-hmm. I pull it out, and it's a Jaws shirt. And I was like, see? I told Adrian, I was like, look.
They attack you from below.
They can kill you
even when they're on shirts.
Mm-hmm. You're sitting on a recliner and part of your butt cheek is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. You're done. So yes, that's what got me, was like all the cool stuff we were finding, and then stuff that I was like, why didn't we throw that away?
Yeah.
Why do I need this? Like I had a box of stickers somebody gave me. I threw them away immediately. And like they just gave them to me. I was coming out of the hospital visiting a friend back during the election. Not this one, the one before.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, they were closing up when they had a little whatever booth there, and they were trying to proselytize to people. And they gave me a I voted sticker.
Oh, those are so lame.
And then the lady goes, "You want some stuff?" And I'm like, not really. I told her that, not really. She's looking at the other lady. And she hands me a box of crap. So I open it up, and it's like all this I voted stuff.
Who cares?
And why I didn't, because when we had it, the boxes, they were just boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets put into the storage along with important stuff. I found a filing cabinet with like very important stuff in there. I was like, oh, let's get that. But you know, it is what it is. Big bunch of mess. So tomorrow night. So here's what happened. Valentine's fell on a Friday, right? So we couldn't do the show. We had to, because there were too many people that were in love.
I just have to go and be
Yeah,
loving each other.
me and my wife hit a drive-through. That's what we did. But it wasn't our fault. We would love to be able to go, I love you, and look deeply into each other's eyes. We did it all the time anyway. But we were moving stuff. And Nellie's like, wow, this is so romantic. We're at the Pollo Rico ordering chicken for everybody. But it's healthy. It's roasted chicken. And so we just laughed. And she was like, there's a Tractor Supply store. I think we need some food for the animals. Oh, it's closed. And I was like, wow, happy Valentine's Day.
Yay, errands.
So
always dreamt of a day would run errands.
So romantic. Such a romantic Valentine. But we're going to get it together. We're going to do something, me and her. And we'll do it. We'll have fun. But she's different, though. She likes doing things. She likes throwing axes and knives, and she's that kind of person. She's just into that. She likes to do stuff that's cool. You know, She likes cool stuff. I'm lucky in that way. And she likes going to baseball games. You know, it's like something fun. I like doing. She likes doing those things. She doesn't go, oh, well, you did that. Now we got to go to the cross stitch place. No.
Let's go to the opera.
Yeah, she's not messing with me. She's good like that. But we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna do something. But yesterday and today was just moving, and we got to do it all day tomorrow. We got to go out to another place and move stuff. But tomorrow night, though, is our show. We got to do the show. And here's what we got to talk about. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. You know, speaking of storages, I was sitting there, I was talking to Scorpion and Adrian, and I was like, you know, that's his brother. I was like, every time I go into one of these storage facilities, even though ours is a really nice one, I mean, they keep it really immaculately clean. It's where all the highfalutin people live. That's where we got ours. Mm-hmm. 2 neighborhoods over. It's not where we live. Mm-hmm. We go over. No, I'm just kidding. But there was a guy who gave me a story about something in a storage facility. And then, so I looked it up, and I had 2 others. And this was a couple of weeks ago when we were at the storage, and I was telling you, Anthony, that we need to do a show about it. And another person that ran a storage facility and the weird stuff that happened to them. The haunting began when some people moved some stuff in, and some weird creatures showed up at this other one. I mean, so there's some weird stuff there. And then I got another story to tell you about a guy in Georgia who we were talking about porta-johns and restrooms and stuff. He had a horrifying thing happen to him on a job site. So that's coming up tomorrow night. That's tomorrow night. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a bunch of weird stuff happen. I got another person, a guy named Casey. KC, which I'm hoping doesn't stand for Kansas City Chiefs. But his demeanor totally changed when I posted, I hate the Chiefs. I hope they lose the Super Bowl. And then he started being kind of snarky with me. No, I don't know. But then again, I just posted, I hate KC. So maybe he thinks I'm talking about him. So if you're out there, I was. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, and so there's a lot of stuff coming up that we got to talk about. But tonight we have a guest, right? We have a guy coming on,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's an expert. He called me up and he says, it was just like this too. He says, yeah, hey, I got the phone backwards here. Let me turn it around. He says, yeah, my name is Harley, and I'm an expert in Bigfootism.
Yeah. He's like, you're good, kid, real good.
I'm like, you're good, kid. See, you're real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be fifth best. See, because I'm number 4. And I said, look, there's a few people ahead of me, but you can't jump around, kid. You got to take your seat. And he says, look, I know everything about Bigfoot. He's like, for example, did you know that they despise black licorice? I said, me too. He says, exactly. They like red licorice. I said, okay. He says, and when you're out there in the woods and you're giving them donuts, they don't like the strawberry jelly. They like the lemon filled. So
Obviously.
This guy's done his work, man. He has clearly he's on top of it. Harley's that guy. I said, holy crap, this guy, he was schooling me, man. I said, okay, man, that's what we're doing. He says, and they have a fondness for PlayStation 3. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
God of War, probably.
It's got the most games.
I think so. So he says they have a human level intelligence. It's above ours.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. So that's what we got going on tonight. So let me get my headset on and let me bring on our esteemed colleague and guest, Harley Owens, so he can tell us all about Bigfoot and what he's uncovered and what he knows, because I'm just here. Gluten-free for Bigfoot. Yes, V.
Mm-hmm.
They actually, the last time I had a Bigfoot sighting was about 2 weeks ago at the HEB. That's our local grocery store. And they were shopping in the carb free aisle.
Mm-hmm.
You could smell them from clear across the store. You're like, oh, what is that smell? You're like this going, I took a shower. Like,
they really hate beef jerky, though.
Yeah,
they've gotten harassed by jacklings for too long. Mm-hmm. So they've got a vendetta against beef jerky.
They're sick of the stereotypes.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this racism against Bigfoot. So let's bring him on. Let's see what Harley's doing there. Harley, how you doing?
What's going on?
Not much, man.
Oh,
I was just giving people the heads up about. We were telling them what an expert you are.
Hey, I'm not. I am far from an expert. Whatever he just told you, I am far from an expert. There is no expert in this field.
No, your sound is a little down. Can we make him a little bit louder?
Yeah, let me see if I can turn. I think we can turn you up on our.
Yeah, we're going to try and turn
Harley,
you
hang on a second.
All right.
I like the backdrop. Is that your backdrop there? Or you actually out in the woods?
So this is my backdrop.
Okay.
It just makes me feel like I'm out there, kind of. I have different ones, but I just like this one. Kind of gives people an idea of what I have to hike through. The mountain morals out here in East Tennessee. Excellent cover. So, I mean, you can see what it's like without the leaves right now, but when it greens up in the summertime, it's like a jungle out here.
Wow. Yeah, the summertime is such a contrast because east of where I grew up, just like maybe 15 miles east of where I grew up, it gets the terrain changes and it gets really thick woods. And in the summertime, you can't see anything. Anything could pop. That's why people see these things come up right up to the road, because they don't see them until they're like poof right there. So what do you got for us? So did you have an encounter that got you started in all this? How did it start?
Yeah. I grew up not believing in Bigfoot. I was skeptical about it, but we always had the Black Panther growing up, and there was always the stories about Bigfoot. And, I just never did believe in it. Growing up, my dad was a lineman, and as soon as I wanted to do something different, and I was like, I'm just going to go work with my parents' neighbors because they had an auction company. And we traveled all over Pennsylvania, Virginia, Kentucky, East Coast. And we went to a place called Pound, Virginia. And that's actually where I had my first Bigfoot sighting. I got a photograph of it, vocalizations, and I found footprints. And that was, it happened in September of 2020. And it had a long-lasting effect after that. I planned. Well, this year will be 5 years. And, I started researching in December of 2023, and I've just been in this a little over a year now. I'm very fortunate and very blessed to do what I do, and just quite frankly enjoy God's country out here in the Smoky Mountains. So I just got a lot to talk about, and
Well, get started. Let us know. Tell us. Let's start with this. What is it like a day in the life of going out and doing what you do? I guess would be boots on the ground work.
Oh Lord, it's different, that's for sure. Getting out there, I just don't stick to the main trails. I venture off a couple of miles, and I always tell people you can't find them on the couch. You got to put yourself in a position to have an experience or some kind of encounter.
Hmm.
I've lucky to take people out a couple of times and actually see one. My best friend was actually with me back in January of last year, and he seen his very first big. It was really special. So it's this area. It used to be researched by Scott Carpenter, rest his soul, and he's a very very huge inspiration for what I do. Mantle where he left off, so to speak. And he done a lot of good things for his community. So this area that I've been in for over a year now, military in this area, and it butts up right into North Carolina line almost. And this area, I've seen UFOs in this area while doing with Rick Atchestein, and we've seen orbs, and we've had yells and roars at us. Also, not to mention all the trees that we find. And actually, in October of last year, I casted my first footprint that I ever found in there, almost 16 inches long. And Rick was actually with me for that. So it's different, because I always run into hikers out here all the time. Not right now in the wintertime. There's always one guy that I run into. They all like, do you ever hear anything? Let's see. The StreamYard acting up. I don't know if it here.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me turn off my headphones. Hang on. I'll take my headphones out.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah,
That
gives you a clear.
Okay. Yeah, these headphones ain't worth a crap. My apologies.
That's all right.
Normally they work. Sometimes they don't. So this, I always tell the hikers in this area. I always ask, because I always run into somebody new. I'm like, you ever had anything weird happen here? And they're like, no. And so I eventually started talking to this one guy that I always run into over and over. And I kept bugging him. And he was like, you know what? He's like, I'm going to tell you. And he's actually had several experiences, although he says he's seen one in November, just a couple months back. And he said that he was walking his dog, and he said he thought it was a bear, a black bear cub. He said it was down on all fours and was crawling around the ground. And I said, you sure it was a bear cub? He said, no. He said it stood up to the bipedal position and it took off running. And so I was like, well, that goes to show that there's Bigfoot in here. And so I have trail cameras set out and all this good stuff. I used to gift them, and I eventually stopped because I learned that there's unintended consequences with that. Because there is another side to these beings, and I've experienced it here in the house, and I've had help with getting it out so far. And I always encourage people to keep an open mind, because there's more to these things than meets the eye.
Let me ask you this. Okay, lots to unwrap right there. First of all, Rick Atchestein, great guy. He's been on my show a couple times. He was at my first conference, him and Bobby, his wife. They don't really put a label on themselves, but I used to call them kind of endearingly Ghostbusters or demonologists, because they know a lot about that.
Oh, yeah.
And Rick, I mean, he went out on a little investigation with me. We took him to a site where a Dogman had been reported by someone who was walking along a fence line, and it was coming out of a rock quarry, because I think they come from within the earth, and the more that they've unearthed in that area, the more people have seen them. There's been another sighting in that area since then. But Rick and I went through there, and we drove along that fence line, and you could clearly see where the person had been stalked by one of these creatures. And now, when you were switching up here, when you were talking about the bear cub, is it possible that this thing was because I know there's this thing that we call the Bear King. It's a legend, but I and a few other researchers in this area have uncovered a lot of cases, reports of these bear man looking creatures. Now, they're distinctly different than the werewolf looking Dogman creature. Do you think it could have been one of them? The way it stood up and moved. What was the locomotion like?
He said it stood up. He said it was down on all fours, but he said it was very small, like 3 or 4 foot tall. He said it was very small, and when it stood up to a bipedal position, he said it was at least 3 or 4 foot tall. When it took off, it was very quick. He said he didn't really get a good look to tell if it had ears like a bear or anything like that. He said all he seen was a black mass down on all fours, and it took up on 2 feet, and it took off. So I'm very firm that I believe this area is a nursery for where they raise their young.
The Bigfoot.
Yeah. I think it's where they're raising their young. Because not too far is a campground, and they actually closed this campground down right now. I don't know why. Because last year in January, I actually had a Dogman encounter up above the campground, and that's actually how I met Rick. Rick heard about my Dogman encounter, and Rick came to meet me, and we went to the spot where I seen it. And me and Rick have been friends ever since. We've been friends for over a year now, and so it's the bear man. That that kind of I think the Dennis Martin case. Somebody said that the bear man had Dennis over its shoulder. I think it was what was said. Is it possible? Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, Josh Nanocchio is a good friend of mine. He was at both of my conferences too. And he's actually written a couple of books, but he's got such a large channel, people kind of forget. But and in one of his books, he talks about it. But he's got the Yosemite series that he did. And it was he's got so many episodes on his show. And him and Josh Cutchins are good friends. And I met Josh Cutchin through him. And they are of the opinion that the national and state parks, like I am too. I didn't really know a lot about it at the time, but over the last 6-7 years that I've been studying this, that I've had a channel, but then I've been doing this since 2016 or 15, I guess. It's been like a decade, but it was about 2 years in that I really started to look at like the state and national parks as a hotbed. And and I know Rick would know this too. The Dogman reports, the Bigfoot reports, they overlap. But they're not seen in the exact same area, but they're seen around each other. They kind of separate each other from each other.
Yeah.
But then sometimes they come together, and you'll get reports of them at the same time, which is really weird. And it's kind of ominous. Why they're together, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I would think of like Martin Grove's case would be one. And then that guy, Mickey, I don't want to say his last name, but Mickey S. I don't think we've done that one yet. It was at the mouth of a cave in New Mexico, but he saw 2 distinctly different creatures standing together.
Oh, wow.
And one of them I would say one of them looked more like a giant. And then the other one looked like it was way smaller, but still like maybe 1.5 foot taller than a normal man, which would be about 7.5 feet. And it was a Dogman. And I said, dude, that must have been a humongous giant, hairy giant that he saw next to it. But Mickey's case was, it's unique unless you go back into our archives, which Anthony and I and Tony did. And, well, my brother beat us to it, and he likes to make sure you know that. We'll give him credit because he looked it up, and he says this has happened multiple times, and we've been recording this all the way back to Devil's Backbone. He was convinced, though, that one of the cases that was near Marble Falls, and he was I'll give my brother credit for this. I have to because he'll talk crap if I don't. Is he? Where's he at? He's not in the chat. But he was the one that first told me. He says there is this bear-like creature that's being seen, and when we did the research, we looked it up. We found that there was a local legend, and my friend Squid was actually living in Marble Falls with his wife at the time, his wife, and they're not together anymore, but we're still good friends. His wife and I, and her new husband. And she grew up out there, and she said, yeah, there are Bigfoot stories, and then there's bear man stories. She wasn't aware of the Dogman until I told her what it looked like. And then she's like, oh, yeah, people see that too. So you literally in that area have 3 different things going on.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, and when you stop and you start researching and cataloging all of this, hey, is that the wife? And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
I hope so.
She's going to the gym. She came out of the woodwork.
Yeah, she came out of the woods. There she is. So, but if I were you and you're being sort of a new researcher, and I'm not telling you what to do in front of anybody or whatever, but do yourself a favor. catalog specifically what these things look like each time.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I got a
Yeah.
journal. I got a journal.
Yeah, there you go.
I
Because
got
you
a
got
journal. I got a journal full of stuff.
yeah, for sure. Because you're going to have different ones, and one of the pitfalls. And after talking to you extensively the other day, I figured you're not stupid. There are people out there though, when they first start, they try to put everything into this is a Bigfoot, and they squeeze everything into that Bigfoot. You can't do that because there's so many different types, and then there's ones that look distinctly different, but you can tell that they're the same species of something, you know.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and so going out and into some of these places, like I've been doing a lot of, I don't want to call it boots on the, I guess research. I don't call it boots on the ground, but we've been field research. We've been doing it quite a bit lately because we've been living out in a ranch until like the last 2 weeks. And so, because we were renovating the house we got, so we were going out like all the time to these places where these creatures have been seen. And when you go there, you can see why they would be there. And inevitably, it's always around places where there's water. So they can have water. That's a big one. And then I think that they have caves that they can go in and out of, because I'm firmly convinced that the flesh and blood part of them, they are underground. But like Rick, and I know I'm going to speak for Rick because I've talked to him extensively. He's stayed down here. He's been in my house. We believe that they're of a Nephilim bloodline.
Exactly.
And they are of a metaphysical nature. They can do things that we can't. The late Linda Godfrey, God rest her soul, she told me and another researcher, we had a talk on the phone, you know. I mean, it was very, she just said, look, she's like, I believe that these things were flesh and blood when I first started. Then she said, as she went on, she started having to pull back and say, wait a minute, Dogman, Bigfoot, Goatman, whatever it is, they come into our world, and the more that they are here, the more physical they become. And that would make sense. We had ranchers from Wyoming, Montana, Utah, all over these. Well, we were talking about it earlier, the ranch states, as we call them. Mm-hmm. They'll shoot these things. One guy shot it with a 30-30 lever action. I know because I have one. Those are a very powerful gun. Mm-hmm. And nothing but dust came off of this thing.
Yeah.
And then what was it like? He said a week or two later, maybe a week and a half. He said anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. I say week and a half. His son or his nephew shot one with his son, and blood came out of it. So that would speak to like what Linda's theory was, that it was. And I don't want to speak for Scott, but you know, Scott got heavily ridiculed toward the end of his life, and he kind of withdrew from the community. I saw it happen. But prior to that, you know, I only communed with him one time, and I communed with Brenton Shawin too before he passed. Same thing. They both said the same thing. The late researcher Scott Martis, he was very flesh and blood. He was looking into the Champ, you know, the Lake Champlain, and then toward the end of his life, he began to change. And he says, "Man, maybe these things are not," because how we met in that zombie plesiosaur group, which is a term that people use that are into the prehistoric creatures. It's like a zombie that shows back up like the coelacanth. Mm-hmm. I mistakenly thought it was like zombie, and then he was real aggravated. He goes, "This isn't that stupid paranormal zombie crap. You know, this is, you know, whatever." Then we became good friends, and over the course of years, like before he passed, he was like, "Maybe you're right. Maybe these things are zombies. I don't know what they are, you know." Right. And so you never see it the other way. You never see people start off as, oh, they're spiritual, they're metaphysical, and then become solid flesh and blood. That never happens. It's always the opposite. Mm-hmm. People start out like I did, just thinking it was a flesh and blood encounter. And then you get all this data, and it supports that these things are not a fully flesh and blood thing. And they can do things. And then there's this UFO uptick that happens in the areas of these things. And you cannot ignore that. Well, you can.
You can, yeah.
Do that.
Only after so long. You have to start connecting the dots. Everything is intertwined and connected in this.
Oh, yeah. So I see behind you, you got what looks like a face.
Yeah. I got this December 9th. I utilize a back trail camera like what Scott Carpenter done, recording behind me. And I got that. You can see its eyes, its nose, cheekbone, hairline. Wow.
Pretty
I mean,
clear.
It is very clear.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And that's actually a new portion of my research area that I haven't been in yet. That was the first time being in there. I had the feeling I was being watched, and I went straight through my video. I went straight to that part of where I was being watched at, and that's what I got. So it's pretty wild.
Wow.
There's a lot of people that dismiss recording behind you, but that's the way you got to do it. Scott figured that out.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense too. Man, I've seen so many. There was a guy that Jesus Payan. He's a good friend of mine. Was at my conference too, and he saw one of these things show up with an alien,
Oh
like
wow.
what looked like an alien, and there was another person with him that witnessed it. I mean, and he's a lifelong alien abductee, and he was able to see Bigfoot. I believe that people that can see spirits, or they can see aliens, like people will have them come into their house, they're more prone to see Bigfoot. There was a lady up in Michigan. We haven't gotten her on the show yet. We're trying to, but she's elderly, but her whole life she's been seeing Bigfoot. Now most recently she saw a Dogman with her daughter, but she saw spirits and she saw UFOs. And and guess where she lives? Taylor, Michigan, right outside of Taylor, Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Taylor, Texas, Taylor, Mississippi, Taylor, Michigan, like what's his name? The name game. What's his name? Has the museum.
Oh.
I'm actually in his museum.
Lauren Coleman?
Lauren Coleman.
Yeah.
Lauren always said, don't never like overlook the name game. It's a very weird thing. It's so bizarre but it does speak to the fact that there is a pattern to all this. We don't know what it is. We know that it exists. But let me ask you this, my friend. I have a question for you. And you've been doing this. You said you had a Dogman encounter. Tell us about that. What happened with that?
Oh Lord. January 29th of 2024. I think I was going to go for a hike in my normal area.
So it was about a year ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago. Yeah, exactly a year ago. I got in the truck, I head out, and I was going to go to the original place, and I decided not to last minute. And I remember distinctly praying before I went, because I'm not going to lie, I was close in my faith, but that day it was different. I was like, I'm going to pray before I go out here.
Good thing.
And I hit the first trail that I was going to check out, and I found some things, and I think I actually have a picture of it on here. I found an asterisk that the Sasquatch had made. Oh yeah, right here it is. So I didn't take a picture. I have another picture of it, but the Sasquatch had rearranged the trees and stuff, and that's the actual photo that I took that day, and you can see where they broke this tree. Yeah, exactly right. And I was taking some more pictures, and this is from the exact same day as well. I found rock stacks, and I found 3 or 4 different sets of rocks just stacked on top of each other. Why they associate with 3 so much, I don't know. What I would do sometimes is take some rocks out there and just stack them in different ways, and they would always rearrange them, but there would always just be 3. So I ended up just heading on up to this next trail, and it led to a waterfall. And I kept hiking along up through the trail, and I remember coming down this hill, and there was a culvert right there, and it had washed out from the rain, so you just had to walk over the culvert, and there wasn't no ground or anything around the side of it, and I had to go up this hill, and then the trail widened off. The trail to the right was overgrown and wasn't maintained very well by park services, so I decided to go further up the mountain. And I'm going further up that trail, and I seen a game trail that cut across from left to right. And so I decided to go over to the right because it was just like a little flat area right there, and it had a big high wall. And I was looking around, and I actually found these huge twist breaks. And this is what I look for, honestly. And I'll tell people why. Because if you find stuff like this and there's no other trees around that are like that, that's obviously, I think, is going to be their sign. Why? I think it's a marker for the other ones. Hey, I went this way, or it means water or food or whatever the case may be. Now that was probably about 8.5 foot off the ground, and there's actually another one right there. Because I tried every way in the world to rule it out that it wasn't them, and I just couldn't figure out any other way because we hadn't had any storms or anything. And I was like, well, this has got to be sign. And so I'm still walking around there looking a little bit more and finding some more things. And I get back on the main trail, and I go up, and I come up to a curve, and there was a little straightaway, and it cuts back into another curve. And I remember distinctly before I got to that first curve, I checked my phone and I had like 30-something% battery. And I sent my wife my location over satellite because I didn't have no phone service. I mean, there's barely any service out in the mountains anyway out here. And I go up and I come across the first curve and I get to the straightaway and I check my phone again and it said 10% battery and it shut off. And that happened to me during my first Bigfoot encounter. And when that happened to me, it was like deja vu all over again. I told myself, I said, this is going to be a Bigfoot because when you get zapped, it's just one of their things that they do. And I've experienced it several times, but sometimes when they zap you, you'll get hit by infrasound. So I came back, I started to come back around the first curve and I heard something behind me to the right. And I was like, all right, I'm going to stop. It's going to turn. It's going to be a Bigfoot. Well, I stopped and I turned, and sure enough, I locked eyes on this huge, dark brown wolf, essentially, is what I thought it was. And it was laying flat on the ground and had these huge, huge yellow eyes. And so I'm locked eyes with this thing. These eyes are self-illuminating. This thing pushes itself up with its forearms, and it takes 3 steps to a tree, and it places its paw or claw or hand, whatever you want to call it, up on this tree. And it's like growling and trying to, I guess, playfully toy at me. I have no idea what this thing does. It still rattles me to this day. This thing was huge. And, you know, when I looked into the eyes, there was nothing, you know, and like just life was flashing before my eyes. It was not a very good feeling. You know, my wife was going to be a widow without me. My kids were going to grow up without me. And it was not a very, very good feeling. You know, it was like I was going to be a missing 411 case. And so the only thing I knew of to do was to run. So I started backpedaling and I took off and I ran. And I was barely looking over my shoulder as I was running away from this thing. And I could see the brush moving. It wasn't chasing me from the trail. It was chasing me from off the trail. And I remember distinctly that was on my way in. I crossed 2 little bridges. And when I came down, I crossed that little culvert. I seen the brush moving. And I came up. I came back around. And I crossed the first bridge. And I turned and glanced again. I could see the brush moving. And I caught a glimpse of it moving through the brush. But when I got to that second bridge, I'm pretty sure that's when it stopped following me. But then when I got back to the truck, that's when I realized that the good Lord protected me that day. These dogmen are not a joke. These things are very real. They are just as real as the Bigfoot. You know, I didn't believe in the dogman until that day. And I've actually had a second experience with one, but that one I did not see. It was stalking myself and my stepdaughter's dad. But this is where Rick comes in. This is where I first met Rick. So Rick heard about the first dogman encounter, the dark brown one that I seen. And Rick comes out and we go up to where I had this encounter. From where that dogman was laying to the tree it was at, that was 28 feet and it took that in 3 steps. But here's the kicker. Where it was laying at, Rick's compass was going haywire.
Wow. And
so from where it had its hand propped up on the tree, there was claw marks. And from there, I figured I could tell a good height estimate. It was 8 feet tall, not including the ears. It was almost 4 foot at the shoulders. Wow. Now, I don't know. The hands were the freakiest part. You ever seen a raccoon's hands up close?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's how they look. Hey, there's Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby. Yeah. So Bobby said to remind you about getting scratched. What was that about?
Oh, so that happened just a few months. I think it was in October. So my wife and I and my wife's my sister-in-law, we were driving around and I dropped them off at the store and we were sitting there. And all of a sudden, I just get this burning sensation in my neck. and I didn't think nothing about it until it started burning more. And I looked in the rear view. I sat up and looked in the rear view. I had 3 huge claw marks down the side of my neck.
3 significant.
The 3 thing is what that always that's something that I've talked with Rick about too, you know, and there's a lot of speculation about what it could be, but it's the mockery of the Trinity. And it's hard for people who haven't been around these things, and like I've said this many times, what I saw when I was 15, I never forgot. My friend's brother, well, I say my friend's brother, he's my friend too, but he wasn't the one that I initially saw it with, but he saw it at the window. And it looked like he said it had black. He told me and Anthony it had black vapors coming off the back of its neck, and that was in 2019 when he told me that, and I was like, I didn't. You never told me that. And he goes, well, you never asked, and I thought I had looked at this situation from every angle, and I hadn't. And when I started interviewing people from around my hometown, one of my distant relatives, she's like a 4th cousin. So, but she's still related to me, but she had one that chased her near Mustang Creek. And she said the first thing when it came up over the bridge, it just looked like black mass with red eyes. And then it took a shape, and it was a werewolf looking creature, chased her and her mother and her little brother. And they were fleeing from their abusive father who drank. He would drink. And this thing, it's like it comes for your negativity. Most recently, I had a friend, speaking of Bobby, I have a friend named Bobby, and his name is Bob. I'll call him Bobby S. But he was telling me he was living right outside of, in between Pflugerville. Where's Norman's Crossing is in between Rice's Crossing and Pflugerville?
Yeah.
But he was living out there, and it was probably about 8 miles, I'd say 6 miles from another sighting where somebody saw one go across the road and elongated. And when you think of that, when they said that to me, I was thinking of Adventure Time with Jake and Finn. Jake and Finn,
Yeah.
And I was just about to make a little joke, and then she was like, it wasn't like Adventure Time, fun time, no. And I was like, I wasn't going to say that, but I was. Then I admitted it to her. I said, look, her name was Jessica. I said, Jessica, yes, I was going to make a joke. She goes, I know you are. Because she's a friend of a friend. But she said, look, this thing elongated, and but I think it's something that we see with our eyes. Hey, Slim Jimmy, how you doing? Jimmy told a really crazy story on the Patreon. We got to get him on to come and tell that. But this thing went across the road. And so about 6 miles from there is where Bobby lived, Bobby S. And Bobby had this thing stalking around his backyard. He lives in a double wide trailer. His wife and his kids were living in Oklahoma still because they were trying to finish the school year. He was up there working at a gas company, and he's from here, but he had moved back down. And so they rented a place temporarily, and he was here for about 1.5 to 2 months before his children finished their school year. His one son was in 4th grade, the other one was in 5th. They're Irish twins. And so he was like, I'm letting them finish, and then they're going to move down. So he had a really good job. He was working at Samsung. And he was working this shift work, and he says he hears this banging in the back. Now get this, Harley, this is crazy. He goes to the back, he opens the door, and when he saw it through the window, he thought he saw real quick like a head of something. He's like, I was so half asleep, I just woke up. It was 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon. He's getting ready to go to work. He says he goes around to the back door, and he says there's nothing but a big pile of ashes there, blowing in the wind. And this happened a couple times. And then there's more to it. I'm not going to get into it, but that's bizarre. And so when he asked me about that, I told him, yeah, that's another weird aspect. People will see Bigfoot, Dogman, and they look like flesh and blood beings, but they sometimes will like dissolve, and they'll have like this black soot or powder, or sometimes like burnt ash, and it'll even smell like a weird mesquite wood smell. Sometimes mixed with sulfur.
I smell that a lot. I do.
Yeah,
smell
that
the
sulfur smell is very palpable, and it gets into your nose. And I've smelled it in areas where Bigfoot's at, and I've walked through wooded area, and I've like you smell it and you're kind of like, what is that? It's a weird sulfury smell mixed with like sometimes blood, sometimes it smells like urine. Dogman, Bigfoot, both. You can't tell which one's which, you know. Brand says Hillary
Clinton. That's a good one.
Well, you know, Brand, we don't know. We don't know. I mean, you know.
You can either confirm nor deny that
I
notion.
heard she smells like BO too, but I mean, I'm just saying that's what people say. People say, but no, back to this. But you know, it's a really weird thing when you take these reports. They'll, you know, a lot of times if they haven't seen the show or they don't know what kind of weirdness I've encountered, they'll be like, "Look, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy." And then when they get to the smell, I'm like, sulfur. Yep, I know. And it's like clockwork. And so when you have been out in the field, have you followed up on leads that have turned into something?
I have. And every time that I try to go to these new areas, it just, life happens and I never get to go. But I always have the hiker Mike that I run into out there. He always texts me whenever he's out there. But I did have somebody text me one time. They said that they were out, and I can't remember the name of the park, but they said they were out sitting around the campfire, and they said that it was a husband and wife, and they said they're sitting by this campfire, and the husband felt something hitting him in the back. And he said the next thing he know, he looked over his shoulder and he said what looked like a tiny dragon. He said it had 4 wings, a forked tongue, all that good stuff. He said it was a little dragon. He said it shot off of his shoulder straight up into the air and shot down into the fire and disappeared. I said, listen, I said, I don't want none of that. I said, I don't want a part of no dragon. But they were, I mean, they were dead serious. Like they called me and texted me. Like they were dead serious that they seen a dragon. I was like, well, anything's possible, I guess, in this crazy world.
Sounds like a type of fae.
Yeah, very much so. Could be. I mean,
unseelie court fae.
Yeah, people see these things. Sometimes they'll look like skeletons almost. And they'll. You know, I was watching a show the other day. It was just something that came on YouTube, and I was busy doing something. I had it playing in the background, and the guy was talking about a village, a native village. Now, this was recent. It wasn't like a long time ago. It was in the 1900s, but they were attacked by something that showed up that looked like a really gaunt skeleton-like creature, and you know, I haven't gotten any reports of like a skeleton-like creature, but it sounds like a rake.
Right. Yeah. That's what
these,
I was about to say.
These white crawler, you know, almost they look transparent, you know. And I have gotten a couple reports of something that looked like a small reptilian-looking thing that changed into like what could be maybe a small dragon-like being. But both of the encounters that I got from that, they were rake-like creatures that did that. So you're like, I mean, I don't know, what is that? I mean, when we had Nick Valente on last week, we talked a little bit about it. We talked about the coming prepared and all this, and you know, he's open to anything that could be out there. And we touched on Wendigos and rakes. Also, there's this creature that people call it a gugwe, for lack of a better term, but it's like a Bigfoot and a Dogman mixed together. Have you heard of these?
I have heard of that, yeah. And I tend to lean more towards those being a military thing. I tend to lean that's a government mistake. Yeah.
What is that behind you, Harley? You got a picture.
This is something that I found back in July. 18 inches from claw to claw. So I mean,
wow,
that's a big paw or hand or whatever the case may be.
Oh,
that's big.
What do you think that is, Anthony?
I mean, outside of like something that big, outside of a grizzly bear.
Well, there ain't no grizzly bears in East Tennessee.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I mean, what explanation is there for that?
I was thinking Dogman, but I mean, I've asked Rick, don't know either. I've asked Rick, and Rick doesn't have no idea. I mean, I'm left clueless either, because a black bear even doing something like that is nowhere even close. I mean,
Yeah,
18 inches from claw to claw. I mean,
yeah,
that still
black
does
bears
no
don't even get
justice.
that big.
Yeah, black bear lucky to get 700 pounds on a big one, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is just another one of the curveballs in my research area. I'm like, what all else is in here? Bigfoot, Dogman, and so funny story actually. Shortly after I'd found this, and it's not too far from my research area, my stepdaughter's dad actually had an encounter with the feral people.
Oh, really?
Feral people are everywhere here in East Tennessee.
This is shortly after you found this in the picture?
Huh?
This is shortly after you found this in the picture?
Oh, yeah. He, it was about a week after, I think. He said he was fishing, and he's just fishing for trout, and he had the feeling he was being watched, and he turned around and looked, and he said he seen a person. He said he couldn't really tell. He said he could just see their face in the brush, and he said he moved further down the creek away from them, and he said he had the feeling he's being watched again, and he turned around, and he said it was standing there behind him, and it had one of its hands behind its back. And he said the next thing you know, it threw down a big rock and it took off. And he called me terrified. I said, "Well, you sure it wasn't a Bigfoot?" He said, "No." He said, "This was a human." He said it was butt naked, real mangy looking, had real long hair. He said this was a human. I was like, all right. And so, funny story, he knows somebody that's not too far from that area that has a video of a feral person running through our pasture field.
Yeah, the encounters with feral people kind of remind me of this. Have you ever seen this movie called Bone Tomahawk?
Oh yeah.
I think I have.
Yeah, with Kurt Russell.
Yeah, with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Well, basically, what they're dealing with there is these like this very primitive like troglodyte people who like they're humans, yeah, but like they're so far removed, like they're more animal than human.
Right, like cavemen kind of.
Completely feral, yeah. I mean, even more primitive than cavemen, kind of. It's just like it's like an animal in a pretending to be a human or something. It's
exactly, yeah. And there's so many stories of the feral people here, though. Honestly, like they're all very indifferent. So I tend to think that maybe there's some kind of like, so when the Trail of Tears happened, I think that maybe some of them stayed behind and they just decided to stick behind and just not do the Trail of Tears and just remain hidden.
Mm-hmm.
You think like that there could be a population that's just been so isolated and inbred for generation after generation that they're just kind of just lost their humanity almost?
Yeah, it could be the case too. And I mean, there used to be a lot of people that live in Cades Cove, and then they made it a national park. I mean, that could be some of it too. They didn't want to leave their property, and they just decided to go live in the wilderness. And that could be a very good explanation for it. Yeah.
Speaking of that, one time I was on highway. I've said this on the show. People probably tired of me saying it, but Harley's never heard it, so bear with me, regulars. But I saw a naked man on Highway 29 run across the road when I was taking food to Scorpion from where we were at, because he was up in Georgia, or right outside. Well, he wasn't in Georgia; he was right outside of Georgetown, and we were right on the edge of Leander. So there's a highway that connects those two towns, and I was driving on it. And man, it was me, Anthony, my other nephew Zane, and Zane's uncle, my brother's former brother-in-law, Clark. And I called everybody. I said, "Man, I just saw the craziest." This guy he jumped over the one barbed wire fence, ran across the county road. At that time, it was a smaller 2-lane road. And then he jumped on the other side, and I was like, and he was hauling ass.
Okay.
Well, naturally, my friend Loki and we were talking about it because he caught one of these weird people running around naked on a trail cam. And he said probably a meth head, but I was like, dude, the weird thing about the trail cam and this guy too, the eyes, when the light caught the eyes, they almost looked kind of orangey looking, but I don't know if that's something. Could have just been a naked guy, but there have been a lot of reports of Dogman and Bigfoot in that area. So I don't think it would be the smartest place to be running around.
Right, yeah.
In pastures, it could have a bull in there too, and bulls don't play.
Bulls are unforgiving. They are unforgiving. I grew up raising Black Angus cattle, and I know all too well about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up around cattle. First 15 years of my life was in the sticks. You know, I moved to the barrio when my mom and dad split up, and my mom's like, yeah, I was going to go live with her. And first, I'd live with my dad, and that was just a nightmare. So I went to go live with my mom, which wasn't any better. And she was like, "This is where we're living," and I'm like, "This is, I'm white, right?" I was like, I'm Hispanic, but I'm half Hispanic, but like I look like a Walio, like a white boy. And growing up in that neighborhood was like, it was just ass whoopings all around every day, until you learned how to fight. And I figured out pretty quick. I had pretty quick. I could throw hands pretty fast. But yeah, it was culture shock. And I'm like, I grew up like around farm animals. And these kids, they picked up real quick. And I talk like this, and I don't talk like that no more because I worked real hard not to. So they would quit beating me up and making fun of me. And these people still kind of had an accent because we lived in a small town. Then when I moved to Austin, I thought I had done a pretty good job of getting rid of the accent. These people were like, "You sound like a hick. You sound like a hillbilly." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I'm going to talk like this now. So I practiced really hard, but then every now and then it'll come out. I'll say "winda," or "you want to."
Well, my accent can get pretty strong, so
Yeah,
I'm
you got
trying
a
to
strong
avoid that
accent.
at
You're from
all
Tennessee,
costs.
right? Tennessee?
Yeah,
Is
East
that where you're
Tennessee.
from?
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah. So you're up there by the Appalachians. That's where a lot of weird stuff happens, man. I mean,
Yeah.
spooky stuff. I've been to Tennessee a few times. I've always loved how densely wooded it is.
Oh, yeah.
Driving through there, folks, if you've never driven through Tennessee, it's a beautiful state. And it's actually Texas's sister state because Tennessee sent more. That's why they're called the Volunteers.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
really,
they're in Alabama. Was there?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, during
Yeah.
during the war for Texas independence, the Tennesseans sent more people than any other state.
Y'all can all go to hell. I'm going to Texas.
Yeah, the second state was Kentucky. The third state was
We don't want nothing to do with them Kentucky folks.
yeah, Kentucky. But it was Tennessee, Kentucky, and Mississippi sent them, and then in Louisiana. Those are the four that sent the most, and then it just went from there. Oddly enough, there were a lot of people who came. Get this. Not from Oklahoma, from Kansas, from Missouri and Kansas came down. Yeah, there was a big influx of Kansas. What would you call them? Kansanites and Missourians.
Mm-hmm.
They all came down, and then during the second flare up, which was the Mexican American War, and so it ended up being Texas. Of course, was part of the acquisition. They ended up joining the Union, and then there was the purchase that took place of West. They bought California. It was like $15 million. They bought it from Mexico. Now, somebody was talking about that the other day, not to segue into history too much, but there was this big debate on there. And they were like, California belonged to Mexico and it was stolen. No, it was not. And the United States did not have to pay them for it. They had already defeated them. They could have just taken it, but they gave them $15 million. Now, if it was me and we had just gotten into a fight, I mean, I wouldn't have given you $15 million. I'd have just been like, take it and, or leave it, or we'll just keep fighting. It'll get worse. So that's what really happened. And also when Texas was supposedly, Mexico, which I don't really agree with, there were less than 5,000 Mexicans in Texas at that time. The reason is because of what, Anthony?
Because they couldn't get control of the Comanches.
Comanches.
Nobody could. They just killed everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a reason that like there were no like major settlements, major Mexican settlements here in Texas. It was just this whole area was Comancheria. It was Comanches and Apaches unaliving each other in droves. Just total. If you weren't a Comanche, you were a target.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Mexican population never really settled, north of the Rio Grande very much. It was too dangerous. They would show up, and then all anyone knew was that they wouldn't come back. They would disappear.
Mm-hmm. They would just kill everybody. And believe it or not, the last time that Austin was raided by the Comanches was in the 1870s. This was after the Civil War.
Holy cow.
And it was burned down. It was like 1873 or 1876, something like that. And it was the last major Comanche victory. And it was the capital of Texas. And there was full-on United States cavalry here. And it was literally razed to the ground by the Comanches. And they killed like 30-something Union soldiers. It's funny because on that Lonesome Dove, they're like, we're here to get the Comanches are out of hand. And Woodrow tells them they've been out of hand. Where were you? The Texas Rangers have been fighting them for years.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't here helping. You took a little break during the Civil War because they were like, oh, the white people are killing each other, but then it was right back to it, and they killed everyone and anyone. It didn't matter. They were just really, really bad, man. It was 1840 was not the last Comanche raid, Chris. If you look it up, it was in 1870 or late 1860s when they raided Port Lavaca, and then they were ambushed. The Texans got some payback on them in Lockhart, right outside of Lockhart, and then in the 1870s they burned down Austin. Now that's something that people in Austin the Texas doesn't like to admit, but it happened. You don't want to look like you're vulnerable, but what ultimately defeated the Comanches, the only real loss they ever suffered was in New Mexico. A Spanish general, I think his name was Santiago or something like that. It's not important, but he defeated them with the Lancers in open combat because they were more guerrilla warfare. What got them ultimately was that the Texans and the United States soldiers went after their game. They killed the buffalo, so it starved them out. Other than that, they were never really going to submit. They just were not going to submit, and now they were one of those tribes that barely exists now because they were wiped out. There are less than a few thousand full-blooded Comanches in the entire world. I'm part Comanche, but their blood runs through our veins. But it's not, I don't wake up and be like, I am Comanche. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't wake up and be like, I feel like I'm Mexican and Comanche and Cossack.
Well, I have Cherokee in me. The only time that shows is the summertime. My skin gets real tan.
I do too.
That's the only time that Cherokee shows.
Yeah, if I go out in the sun in the summer, I tan very well. I look almost like I'm an Italian or something. Or you can tell I'm Hispanic if I let this grow out. But it's got that Spaniard look to it, which is really actually from the Arabs, because they ruled Spain for 800 years and then they were driven out finally. But so what do you got there? What is this picture of?
I'm trying to figure out my screen here. This is a 3-toed track that I found in July 24th. Yeah, it was July 24th. It was 3 days before the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference. It's got a toe there, looks like almost like a thumb, I guess, and then you have the other 2 toes. It was very weird. I'm almost positive it's 3 toes because just the padding, you can't really tell it in this one. Let me find another one. Hang on, I got another picture of it. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so there's a better angle of it. It's a very ominous looking foot. Last time I checked, there's no ostriches or emus running around in the Great Smoky Mountains. I had people tell me it was a raptor.
If you look at those Dogman feet, dude, when I was close up to one, I still remember there was a claw looking, and I've always said this, and I'll say it again. It looked like a freaking raptor claw, but it was the foot of the Dogman. It was so weird looking, dude. That 3-toed stuff is just so weird because you get those also in the swamp in Louisiana. What do you think it is, Harley?
I don't have no idea. Yeah, I've had people tell me it's reptilian. I've had people tell me it's grays. I've had people tell me Dogman, Gugway. I mean, I don't know. Nothing. I mean, nothing could surprise me with what left that. But I initially thought it was Dogman, but I mean, with anything else out there, I mean, it could have been anything.
Chris says it's the devil chicken.
Devil chicken. Well, there we go. Devil chicken. There we go. The 6-foot turkey.
Oh my gosh! I tell you, man. So we were talking earlier about Josh Nanokio and Josh Cutchin. Those are guys you need to look into because Cutchin's got the book Where the Foot. It's the Bigfoot Phenomenon. Same name as my book, but it says it's called Where the Footprints End. Right. Mm-hmm. And I have copies of it. I'll send you a copy. You can take a look at it. I'll send you a copy of my book too.
Okay.
One of the weird things about if you go to Nanokio's channel, it's called What Lurks Beneath, folks, if you want to check it out.
Okay.
and I don't have a problem plugging other people's shows. I want people to absorb as much as possible so you can see, you know. And when you look at the episode of the Yosemite with the bear man and then the dog man, you know, it's so weird. Like there was definitely something going on there. And of course, there's always been Bigfoot, you know, but there was like Bigfoot was there and then they were gone. And then there was just this bear man and then these black, you know, BDU wearing military people came through there. And then people started seeing wolf-like creatures that were tagged in their ears. Like that some of the people claim that they saw like a tag on their ear.
Yeah.
Which would mean that maybe these bear men were there naturally occurring somehow, if you want to call it that. And then maybe when these black ops came through there, they brought in these wolf man operatives or assets, as they call them.
Yeah, the assets.
Assets. And they used them to drive out these bear men because the bear men were highly aggressive, hyper aggressive, and they were taking people and doing whatever it was that they were doing. It is a very weird thing. If you also, another thing you could look into, the Skinwalker Ranch, the book by George Knapp. If you read that book, they talk about those three-toed prints. And then another good source that you could look into, there's a guy has his channel. It's mostly true crime. And I haven't seen a ton of it, but I know who he is. And I've seen his billboard here. They call him Mr. Ballin. I don't know if people know who that is. But if you're into true crime, he does a little bit of paranormal, not a lot. But he's into the true crime. But he did one where a guy was out in the woods. I've seen this episode. And they're not real long. They're like 20, 25-minute segments usually. And a guy went out hiking out in the woods in one of these national forests. And he ended up being stalked by a guy. And I can't remember what the guy kept saying, but it was like it spoke to that it was a feral person. Because they kept showing up and they were asking him a question like, do you know where something is? I can't remember what it was. And they asked him over and over and over again. And this guy was just terrified. And the scary thing was his flashlight had went out and he was kind of finding his way back to civilization, if I remember correctly. And I remember looking it up and I read the encounter too. Not all of it because I don't have time, but I just kind of skimmed through one of the stories. And it's crazy because the guy was being stalked by what I think was a feral person.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't using a flashlight or anything.
Yep.
I mean, he was doing it by, hey, BMR, what's going on? Bigfoot, Michigan, Rob.
Hey, BMR.
Great guy.
So I want you to check out this picture, Josh. So this is the picture of the Dogman that was stalking me and my stepdaughter's dad. So to give a little context behind this picture, this thing is standing in a creek bed. So me and my stepdaughter's dad had to pull ourselves up from this tree that's in the picture. So I'm 6'6", so I had to reach up and pull myself up out of this creek bed from this fallen tree. This creature is standing in the creek bed. Check this out. It's gonna blow your mind. So this is the original. That's the original. This is just a brightened up version of it. But over here to the far right's the original coloration of it. So you can see the tree right here that we had to pull ourselves up out of. There's actually the tree Y's, and that's just the higher part of the Y.
It looks evil too.
Yeah.
Looks like a giant pit bull.
Yeah. You need to talk to Bettina Moss. You would be good with her because she's got pictures of this one thing that looks like that. You know what I'm talking about, Anthony?
Mm-hmm.
The one from the conference she showed looks like that.
That's wild, ain't it?
Mm-hmm. It kind of looks like that. Nellie took one when we were at Apache Pass. There you go, Apache Pass, on a bridge right there by the water. And it was just beautiful fall foliage. It was on Thanksgiving Day. My brother and my wife went out there for a little foray. Boots on the ground, I guess you could call it, walking around, whatever. And I had a kidney stone, and it was miserable. But my wife took a picture, and you can clearly see the head of this creature. I mean, it is right there in the foliage, and it had to be super tall. But that thing right there, that looks evil, dude.
Well, me and my stepdaughter's dad figured it up to be around 8.5, 9 foot tall, if not bigger.
Have you ever wondered, Harley, if these things like the ones that look more like real dogs, which you don't get very many of, you and maybe Bettina and a couple other people, Abe Cius, he's another one. Have you ever wondered if maybe those are operatives that were bred to maybe hunt and fight with the
I
actual?
believe it. I believe it. I can see that.
Because that would make sense. Because you would have an easier time, right, Anthony, if you were controlling like an actual canid that is like a dog
Yeah.
than a wolf. Because a wolf's going to be like, I'm a wolf. I'm not going to do what you tell me.
It's got that primal instinct.
Mhm.
You take something like a pit bull and modify it, that'll be obedient.
Yeah. How big do you think that one was?
I think it was easily 8.5, 9 foot tall. I mean, because I'm 6'6", Hunter's about 6'2", 6'3", and we had, like I said, the tree wise, and you can see we had to pull ourselves up from the tree to get out of the creek bed.
How
And
tall
this
are
thing
you?
was stalking us for about 20 minutes.
How tall are you, Harley?
6'6".
Jeez Louise, you're tall.
Hmm.
You're 2.5 inches taller than me. I'm almost 6'4", but you're a tall guy, man. That's yeah.
I'm 150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you this, man. I would not want to run into something that looks like that thing.
Oh, it's terrifying when you can't even see it because we heard it. I heard it first, and it was behind me. Hunter was in front of me, and we were walking up the creek bed, and we pulled ourselves up out of it. I was going to tell him that it was following us, but I didn't want to say anything until he heard it. Well, he finally heard it, and because he knew at this point that I was researching Bigfoot and all this stuff. And I told him, I said, it's probably Bigfoot. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. And I turned around. I took a picture to the left. I took a picture straight in the middle, and I took a picture to the right. I never seen this thing. I mean, I looked straight at it. I mean, I had to pick the camera straight like this. I was looking straight at this thing, and I didn't see it.
Wow.
That's the crazy part about it. And I seen it to him. He said, dude, what the hell is that? And I said, that's a Dogman. I said, you're lucky you didn't see that. I said, you would rather have wanted to run into a Bigfoot than that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we were just out there turkey hunting, man. Like that. It was wild. That was the first time turkey that happened April 28th, 2024. That was my first time turkey hunting since the spring of 2020 because the September of 2020 was when I had my Bigfoot encounter, and I stopped hunting for 3 years after that.
I don't blame you. What was your Bigfoot encounter like? You want to share it with us?
So the first actually I can pull up the picture while I'm talking about this. Yeah, hang on. So this is the first photograph that I ever got of a Bigfoot. You can see him peeking out from around the tree right there. So that happened September 23rd of 2020. I worked for an auction company at that time called Tri-State Auction and Realty. This happened in Pound, Virginia. It's kind of like southwestern, like right on the Kentucky line. So I'm going to kind of sum this up. So we had the cleanup of the equipment and all this stuff. Auction was on a Saturday. A Sunday came around. It was raining. I wasn't going to sit in a hotel, so I went out and got to work and organized stuff for people that bought their equipment. And so I had the skid steer doing all that. And I got done doing what I had to do. And I walked around the wood line and I found some footprints in the mud. And I was like, I jokingly told myself it was Bigfoot because I did not believe it Bigfoot in that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was firm that it was a homeless person or just, I was ruling out anything and everything because I was not a believer in Bigfoot. I believed in the Black Panthers. And Monday came around, nothing happened. Tuesday, nothing happened. Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020, I got this photograph of this Bigfoot looking at me. So starting out that day, I remember distinctly I was running a little late and I got to the gate. There was 2 gates that I had to unlock to get into this place. And there was already somebody waiting at the first gate. I was like, well, I got to get in here. And I unlocked the gate and he followed me down. I unlocked the second gate. But the weirdest thing to me that morning, because every other morning when I was going in this place, I was seeing deer and turkeys. This morning, there was nothing, no deer, no turkey. And I get on the skid steer. I load up his 3 pallets, and I was the only person I had in there that day. And I was sitting on a skid steer. If I'm not mistaken, I think I was playing Angry Birds. I know I was playing some game on my phone. I'm pretty sure it was Angry Birds. And so lunchtime came around like 1:30, 1:35. I got off the skid steer. I walked over to the service truck, opened up my cooler, get a peanut butter sandwich and a Coca-Cola out of my cooler, and I heard this growl grunt. And the owner originally told us about a bear that was in this place. And I was like, well, this is probably the bear. And I looked over towards the wood line. Well, you can see that there's kind of like a cliff face right here. And below that was just flat level where I was at. And I was looking towards the woods right there. And I was like, well, I don't see anything. Well, I heard it growl again. And I looked, and it was moving from right in this direction. It was moving over to where it was at in the picture. And I was like, okay, this is the bear. And I kept looking. I looked down. I looked back up. I looked down. I looked back up. When I looked down, I looked back up the third time. That's when it peeked out and was doing the peekaboo thing. And I was like, that. When I seen that, that's when I knew that this was not a bear. This was not anything that I had ever seen before. I was like, this. I knew then that was a Bigfoot. And the only thing I knew of to do was to take a picture, because as sure as I tried to take a video, it would have ran off. So I pulled out my phone, snapped the picture. My phone had like 70-something% battery. It shut completely off, and I'm sitting here having a staring contest with this thing. And after a couple of minutes go by, it turns around and walks up into the mountain there, and I was like, holy cow. And I go to the truck. I try and plug in my phone, trying to hope and pray it comes back on. It comes back on, and I have the picture. And this is an edited version, kind of zooming it in a little bit so you can see its face. And that night, about dusky dark, I was doing paperwork. I was sitting in the truck. I did not get out of the truck after I plugged my phone in. I was not getting back out. And I had the windows cracked, and they started hollering back and forth at each other. I had a spectral analysis done of the audio, and it was confirmed that there is more than one creature communicating back and forth. And the next day came, and I get out there, and I find footprints that come down from that ridge where it was at into the sawmill area where I was working. And like I said, I'm 6'6", and I could not do the stride that this thing did in between the tracks. Whether it was this one or another one, I don't know, but the tracks were impressive. I wear a size 12, and the tracks were a good 4 or 5 inches longer than my foot. And they started hollering again that next night, but they sounded like they were further away. I recorded 2 sets of vocalizations that night. They were 15 minutes apart. And that was a wild experience for me. You know, it literally changed my worldview forever. And Friday came around. I left early that morning. I went to a drive-in diner called Robo's. And I ordered my food, and I seen some old timers sitting there. I was like, well, if anybody's going to know what I seen, it's going to be these old boys. Maybe they'll just tell me this is a bear or something else. And I sat down, I struck up conversation, and I said, yo, boys, ever experienced anything weird in these woods? And they all got quiet, and they looked back and forth at each other. One of them said, well, what'd you see? And I said this. And I showed them the photo of the Bigfoot. And I showed them the tracks and all that stuff. And they got real quiet. And this has stuck with me to this day because I had never heard this term. They said, well, those are the devil monkeys. And I said, so that's Bigfoot? And they said, yeah, devil monkeys, wood boogers, Bigfoot, mountain giants. It's all the same thing. And I was like, well, okay, that's all I need. And little did I know, when I got back home, I faced the most ridicule I'd ever faced. I lost friends, family, and this year will be going on 5 years, and it sucks. And, you know, and it shattered everything for me. And, you know, and when I got with my now wife, and, you know, it was eating me up, and I had to tell somebody. So I told my wife, and she's like, you have a story, you know, you can tell this to people. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can. And so I started doing the podcasts and stuff. And on Thanksgiving of 2023, I went back out deer hunting for the first time since the fall of 2019. And I killed an 8-point, and I was like, you know what? I can go out here and look for these things. You know, I've overcome the fear, what I thought was a fear of the Bigfoot. And shortly after, I looked up Bigfoot research in East Tennessee, and Scott Carpenter's name had pulled up. And unfortunately, he passed away in August, and I was like kind of bummed out about it. And I messaged his son Travis, and me and Travis are now very good friends, and we talk just about every day, almost kind of. And it started ever since. Like I've had an addiction to this, and I love picking up where Scott Carpenter left off, and kind of pick up the torch, so to speak, and kind of carry on what he did.
Somebody needs to. I'm going to say, so there's a couple people here that mentioned this, but I'm going to let you speak to it.
Mhm.
One of our listeners says, Betsy Barnacles, she said, 20 ears more like a dog man. And then Samantha Phillips says, is it just me or does that Bigfoot have pointy ears?
Well, I think it's just the shadows behind it because you can kind of see how there's some more darker spots because I remember distinctly not seeing any ears on this thing. And I think that's just the shadows from behind it making it look like it has.
Because your eyewitness account would be, the picture can say, because pictures, folks don't realize how pictures can be distorted.
Mm-hmm. It was 65, 70 yards away from me. I mean, up, and I had to zoom in and take the picture.
Yeah, and so.
But here's the funny thing. So you can't really tell it on this, but for over 3 years, I thought this thing was black. But the way the sun is shining through its hair, you can tell that it's actually reddish brown. But you can't really tell it because it's got it cropped out. But in the lower portion of it, right in here, you can see where the sun's shining through its hair, and you can see that it's actually reddish brown. But like I said, the circle's cut off.
Here Day says, love the pics. It adds validity to the story to me. A lot of times when people send us, I'd say probably 30% of the time we get pictures with it, and we don't usually put them out there because it usually just creates arguments. And then people are rude and they'll be like, oh, it's fake. This person's full of crap, whatever. You insisted. And I said, hey, go ahead, man. If somebody comes on the show and they want to do it. Now, when I retell somebody's encounters, I'm not going to have to try to referee whether it is or not. Like tomorrow night, there was one of the stories tomorrow night, just give you a little teaser, guys. It involves like an imp or what we call it, like a duende, Anthony, the one from the storage place.
Yeah.
It's like and the guy took a quick 2-second video of it because he was sitting there watching, trying to catch it. And you see it kind of go like that, but you can't really tell what it is. And if
this is the original image. That's the original image of him peeking out from around it. I mean, you can even see his shadow right in behind the bush there.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. Like, I had people telling me that it's just a shadow, it's bear, anything and everything. I even had people tell me that the sounds I recorded was an elk. And I was actually a guest on a podcast once. He's like, I'm almost positive this is a elk. And he sent it to an elk expert. He said, dude, this ain't an elk. He said, I don't know what this is.
See, I heard one recently that was supposedly a moose, and then I had someone that, well, I'm not going to say she's an expert, but her and her husband live way up in northern Alaska. I don't know how they can do it. I mean, it's like 20 below up there.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm already like, it's going to be in the teens again next week, and I'm like,
yeah, that's how it is here. No,
yeah, I don't want to deal with that, but that's bad enough. I don't need to be, because it actually gets cold here. People don't realize how cold. They move down here and they're thinking, oh, cool, we're away from. Nope, it gets cold here, and so it does, and so it's going to be like 12 degrees next week. But they live up there, and it is so cold up there. But she analyzed it, and it wasn't a moose. They were saying it was a moose, and I said, if you get time, can you go over this, because it sounded similar to something that somebody described to me and up in Maine, and it turned out that. She's like, this is not a moose. I hear moose all the time. They hunt and eat them pretty regularly up there. And she was like, that is not a moose. I don't know what that is. And I've heard, and here's another weird wrinkle. I don't know if you know about this, Harley, okay. But there's a guy who sent us a story, and it's a terrifying Bigfoot encounter. It's going to be in one of our hour-long segments when we're done with the Monica Rollins interviews. And it comes out on a Tuesday in a couple of weeks. This guy encountered a Bigfoot that was just it was a menace, an absolute menace. And it hit him with a cantaloupe, which just sounds funny, to think about. It sounds like it's hilarious. Yeah. But it was like, it just, they do things that are, and that was a nice thing it did. It also threw a rock and almost hit him in the head and probably would have killed him.
Mm-hmm. If they want to hit you, they will. I've had my fair share of having rocks
thrown almost got him. I think it was just by sheer luck that his wife, kind of like the vehicle lurched forward and he went down and it skidded over the top of his truck. And so she saw it standing behind him about 20, 30 yards away. And she was just, flabbergasted. and it was terrorizing his family. But one of the things it did, which was really insidious, was that it imitated deer sounds.
Oh boy.
It would imitate like rabbits, you know,
Like injured and distressed kind of.
injured, and they saw like this raptor come down, like it was trying to grab, like because it was looking for a rabbit, and then it reached out into the tree and grabbed this
Like
eagle.
a falcon or something?
No, it was an eagle, but it wasn't a bald eagle. It was just an eagle, but it grabbed this eagle, and it didn't even eat it. It's like it just killed it out of spite and then hung it up in the tree.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It did a lot of things. It killed all their chickens in one night. They had 36 chickens, laying hens, killed their roosters, killed their chickens.
Well, we had that happen once. Growing up, we did. My dad jokingly said it was a Bigfoot, but we had 16 hogs at one point, and they were all like 400 or 500 pounds.
God.
And Dad was getting ready to take them to slaughter. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. But that night, our dogs started going crazy, and my dad went down the next morning, and all of the hogs were dead with huge claw marks, and they weren't eaten on. They were just like killed for sport, essentially. And my aunt, she just lived up the hill from us, and they had a lab, and that dog went missing. They never seen her again that same night.
They do these things. I mean, absolutely. We had a neighbor of ours when I was a kid. I'd say I was probably 9, and they had a cat. I had never seen a mama cow give birth. It was always like, you go out, it's already happened, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so my dad took me out there to witness it, you know, and he wanted me to have respect for life. And I respect him for that, you know, but I witnessed it. And I thought, oh, that's cool. You know, and then the next day it was snatched up, and they don't know whatever happened to it. And now if it would have been coyotes or
they would have left it. There'd been sign.
There would have been
Coyotes leave a
signs
sign.
of it. Something grabbed it and walked away with it. And nobody in the area, none of the farms or ranchers had it. And they went and they looked, and they were, I mean, and one of the ranchers, you know, that was out at the end of the property, he had 42 acres down at the very end. We only had ours was 4.5 acres. So, it was almost 5 acres, not quite 5 acres, but down at the end there was a guy. He had 42 acres, and it was just ranch land out there. Was a pasture, and he had an old barn out there. And then he owned another 200 farm acres on the other side of the property, going like about a mile up the road. But that was just a pasture, and he allowed us to go through there, because he had the bull penned up, and he would let us go through there and shoot snakes. Me and my friends, he was like, if you want to kill copperheads, go ahead. So we go out there with our snake charmers, and we'd be shooting them, and late at night too. We were stupid, like throwing over logs and rocks. There's one, bam. You know? We killed about 10, 11 of them one day, man. We just wiped them out, because some copperheads were horrible, little bastards, and they hide underneath that sand. And they'll get you, man. And so we had to wear these boots, you know, and I got struck at several times, but I got real good about it. I could catch them from behind. I even could catch rattlers too. And nothing something I would do now, you know, my luck would be bite me, you know, out of my nose. But no, it was bad, you know, and sometimes we'd run into rattlesnakes and we'd shoot them too. But we went down there, and he told us, we were children, and I remember him telling all of us that he really believed that it was a Bigfoot. He says, I'm going to tell y'all something, man. He called it a wood booger. He said, wood boogers running around out here, and they'll snatch up calves. He's like, he said he watched one walk off with one of his calves, and he hit it with a 22-250, and it just went like that. It just flinched its shoulder.
Just shrugged it off.
Yeah. The 22-250 is nothing to joke around with. That thing,
No.
that'll get you, you know. I had another guy shoot one with a 6.5 Creedmoor, and he said, I got it right in the neck. He goes, and it just went poof, like that. He said it was gray. Usually it's black, but he said there was this gray smoke that came off. It didn't do anything. And I was like, because I don't know if in my arsenal, I don't know what I would use. Probably that. I'd be like
that elephant gun.
You know, I don't know what else I could get. I don't have much bigger than that. I mean, to go after it, you know. I've had people tell me they've unloaded, you know, 357, you know, rounds, 45s, you know, it doesn't do anything. I mean, you're not stopping it. And then the people have claimed that they've shot them, but I don't know if I believe it, you know, they've taken them down.
I think it
Sort of.
fully has to have with, like you were saying earlier, the longer they are here, the more physical they become. Because you look at the Joe Barger incidents, when it's running beside of his freaking semi and he pulls out his pistol and shoots it in the head. I mean, that just sounds, either that one was genetically made or it was just physically more here and, didn't lose it. I mean, I think it has to do with like their DNA. I think if they have like a certain amount of angelic DNA, they can still have the interdimensional qualities or whatever you want to call it. But I think that just boils it down, honestly.
What do you think about this though? Because Joe, I know Joe personally. I just talked to him like a week or two ago. I mean, because he shot one in the eye. Do you think that maybe the eye, because they say the eye is the gateway to the soul. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You think the eye maybe made a difference? I mean, that he shot it in the eye?
I ain't going to say it didn't. I mean, I don't know. I ain't an expert. I mean, I mean, whether, like I said, it could have been like made in the lab and quote unquote asset, or it was just not, I mean, fully physically here and didn't have the interdimensional capability, because I used to think flesh and blood. I used to think that this was a Gigantopithecus until I got out here in the woods and I started having these other strange experiences and encounters with UFOs and lights and being growled at by something that's should be feet away and it's not there. So
I don't know. I mean, that whole Gigantopithecus thing just seems so.
It's old. It's old.
So silly, man. Because okay, like you said, you saw UFOs around this. I mean, like you wouldn't.
Oh, in my research area at night, Rick I don't think Rick was there. I think it was Steven. But we've seen UFOs flying over where we research at.
Oh wow!
And we'll see orbs floating through the woods. And actually, me and Rick, when we were sitting there, we was looking through the thermal and we seen an orb. And, we were handing the thermal back and forth to each other. We were seeing this orb. Well, Rick hands it back to me. This orb is gone and there's a Bigfoot. And it takes 3 steps and it's across the trail. And not even 5 minutes after, in the direction that it was going, it screamed 3 times back to back to back. And then in response was a big owl call.
The orb thing too is such a weird thing because there was one story that we covered, an encounter that somebody had in Louisiana, and this thing appeared right in front of a creek, and it was just like I think it was green or yellow, or I don't remember. It's been a while. But the legs came out of it, and then it just kind of popped out. And it reminded me of something hatching out of an egg. And then it was just there, and it was this Dogman-like creature. And that story, do you remember that one, Anthony? It was at the plantation house in Louisiana. It was like haunted, but they had a Dogman that was coming up to it too. Mm-hmm. And the lady of the house, she saw this orb, and it was like something. The legs popped out of it first. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that was, the context. But anyway, it's one of the stories we covered. And I remember when she told me that, and she's like, and when she said it too, she had a very Cajun accent. She's like, I ain't the only one done seen that down here. She's like, our neighbor done saw that too. And it flopped right into the water. And I was like, maybe the orb just kind of like an egg or a balloon just popped and it fell into the water.
Or if that's like some kind of vessel for them.
Yeah, like a vessel that they travel in. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think recently, what was it? Dick Richards was on the show. Was it Monday?
Yeah, he's
Monday
a big proponent of that they travel in those orbs.
He calls them the O'Fannin.
Mm-hmm.
And he believes that that's an actual living being that carries them and drops them.
That's a good theory. I like that. Yeah.
I mean, and then we have people who've been taken up by these shadow beings, and they're obviously being encapsulated. Think of Jason Bland from Paranormal Soup. You'd be a good guest to go on Jason's show too. I'm going to tell him to have you on because his audience, they would love to have, because they interact too. He'll have people call in and they can ask you questions and stuff. We don't have it set up for that, but it's so, I mean, it just, golly, man. And the pictures you got and everything, it's a really an amazing thing. So all of this that you've been capturing is happened over the last like
5
years?
years.
5 years, right?
Well, I mean, from starting from this one, I mean, and then from what I showed before is from December 7th, 2023 till now, essentially.
Mhm. So a little over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
but
a green in all this. I'm still fresh.
But you found a really good area because, well, good depends, relative term, depends on who you are. Like when somebody tells me that was a really good story, I like that person's encounter. I'm like, they didn't. They didn't like it at all. It was terrible.
I didn't like this one at first, and now
Uh-oh.
here I am out in the woods chasing them.
Well,
like,
people
not
have said
chasing
that,
them,
you know, like they're like, you have a really good story, and it's like, yeah, but it wasn't good to go through.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
very
It
traumatic.
wasn't.
Yeah. What was more terrifying to you, though, the Dogman or the Bigfoot stuff?
The
Which
Dogman.
one?
The Dogman.
Hands down, Dogman. Yeah.
I'd rather run into a Bigfoot than a Dogman. I think, you know, I don't necessarily think I've run into the wrong Bigfoot yet. I think it ultimately depends on the interactions that the Bigfoot's had with humans that determines the outcome on whether they're going to be aggressive or not.
Mm. Yeah, well, you know, here's a weird thing about that, though. Think of this. The people who have the encounters with the Bigfoot up in Alaska or in British Columbia, up near Vancouver Island, things like that, they always claim that those Bigfoot are hyper aggressive. What is the place that where all the people were killed by the
Natinock? No, Natinock one? Portlock.
Portlock, yeah, Portlock up at the canning place. It murdered those people. It was a Bigfoot. I mean, and they ripped their you know, from their bodies. It unalived. I don't want to offend people.
Yeah, unalived.
It unalived them. You know, some people who are like, I'm triggered. You know, whatever. Go to the asthma field. We don't, like Jimmy Johnson said, go play on the asthma fields that you can't handle. Okay, let's baby everybody. But no, these people. What happened was there was another place in British Columbia. I think it was British Columbia. It wasn't the Headless Valley.
Yeah, the Nahanni Valley. Ain't it?
Yeah.
Nahanni River Valley.
Yeah. Nahanni, yeah. And these people, they claim that these Bigfoot are hyper aggressive, but they haven't had a lot of interactions with people.
Right, exactly.
I don't know. You know, maybe, you know, and we don't know how long they live either.
Exactly,
we don't know how long they could be living for so long. And folks, Shade Viking just did something. I love Shade. How you doing, Shade Viking, my friend?
It's an OG.
He's an OG, and I see Dick Richards is right above him. He says, "Rip their heads," because demons hate that we fight the face of God. Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, if you want to be in the giveaway, we did the giveaway mail-offs yesterday. We will be doing the Patreon giveaways on Monday because unfortunately we were about to mail them off without me autographing the books. So I apologize for that. But if you want to be in the giveaway, your name will be in green. And you, Harley, you being a guest on the show, just tell me what you would like, and I'll send you a shirt and my books and whatever.
Alrighty.
So if you want to be in the giveaway, folks, become a member. It's $5. Your name will be in green, and then just say I've never won, and you can be given one of the new hoodies. But I think we're out of 3Xs, right?
Yeah.
We need to just order a bunch of 3Xs. I can't believe how many people are 3X. Like 3X has got, that's where the number's at, 3X and 2X. Those are where a lot of people fall. So what do you got there, Harley? What is that?
That's old Doggy Man.
Wow.
From my back. Actually, this is not from a back trail. Somebody got this on one of my videos, and they sent it to me. I mean, you can see the pointed ears right there plain as day, and you can kind of see the muzzle right in this area. But I mean, those pointed up ears that stick out plain as day.
You know what's crazy? Somebody sent us a photo a few weeks ago, and I'm still debating about what I think of it. A lot of people have showed it to, like, oh, that looks fake. But I mean, and you could imagine what it's like if you put it in a group.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't want to hurt the person's feelings. It was given to them, and they had never given me anything like that before. A long-time listener. But the face, right in here, Anthony, you know what I'm talking about? It looks hog-like. It does. It looks like where the snout is, where the have you ever seen the Frazetta photo, the Frazetta painting of the werewolf, where it kind of looks pig-like in the nose?
Yeah.
Where he's fighting the vampire. It kind of looks like that, but it's more pronounced. It looks like truffles.
Yeah.
It does. I have a hog. He's not a big guy. He's a little pig, but He's our buddy, you know. We keep him around, but he looks kind of like Truffles in the face, you
Yeah.
know. So I showed Truffles, and he just sat there oinking at it. He didn't even give me any. He gave me no information. He just wanted carrots. I'm like, okay, whatever, Truffles. But Beans did. My golden doodle. She gave me all kinds of information before she grabbed it and ran off with it. No, seriously though, it was a picture, and it does look hog-like in the face. It looks so weird, man.
Yeah, this is another one from my research area.
So what are we looking at?
Right here. This big black figure right here with the conical shaped head. It's kind of hard to tell. I can't really zoom it in no more, but you can see like right here in this area, right here, this right here. See what I'm saying? Right here, this conical shaped head. It's not one of my best ones, but it stuck out to me.
But it's dark all the way down too, man. You can kind of see down all the way down to the bottom. Yeah, I think taking pictures of them too, if they have that, and this is just throwing it out there, I don't know, but let's say that they do have that angelic DNA. You know, the photos, they come out weird. You know, they're going to come out weird, and then you get this weird blurry. When they move, they look blurry. People talk about that. Cloaking. Have you witnessed the cloaking?
I have not. There was a really weird incident that happened December 21st when me and two of my buddies were out there. We put up tape from one tree to another, and I put it up. So I put it about 8 foot, I think. I reached up as high as I could and tied it around one tree, and I took it across to the next. And we walked up the hill away from it, and there was no wind or anything like that. And I turned around and looked, and that tape was moving, like something flicked the tape while we were walking away from it. There was no wind, anything like that to explain how it could have moved. And that was very, very strange.
Yeah, that is so weird. Tracker 17 says, I see 6 different in that photo.
Oh, well, see, some people can see other things. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, some people were more in tune with this kind of stuff, you know, like, I don't know. But I did find out, it was shortly after I was on the confessionals with Tony Merkel, because he asked me what my blood type was. I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah. And I actually have Rh negative blood. And people with that are more prone to have supernatural experiences and encounters accordingly. But I don't know.
Yeah, Tony does good work. Tony was at my first conference, too. We're friends. We talk every now and then. He's got a pretty good thing going too. He interviewed some people about the vampire cult too. There's been a lot of talk about that now recently, you know, the vampire thing. I mean, that's,
oh yeah.
You know, I was just talking about it the other day. Roseanne Barr came out and just was like, she was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, and I like Tucker.
Oh yeah.
But she was like, they eat people, Tucker. She's like straight up. She's like, they're vampires. And Tucker's like, what? She goes, don't look at me like that. She's like, it's for real. They're vampires. Like, she just flat out said it. Putin said it too. I mean, you got people coming out and just flat out saying what's going on now. That side of the aisle has got some serious sickness. And what is wrong with these people when they're worried about the Maha movement? Oh my gosh, it's literally make America Hitler again. Come on.
That's stupid. It's so stupid.
Dude, do you want the food to be poisoned? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is it with these people? They're like mad because they're going after the fluoride. I think I'm going to say this. And this has everything to do with what we're talking about. I believe that a lot of what they put in our food and what we drink and in our water is working towards keeping us from seeing the real reality.
Yeah, I believe that. I can see that. Absolutely.
They're trying to keep us from seeing these things. I've talked to people who've seen these things like really just full on. One guy said he quit drinking tap water when he was a teenager because he started dating an older woman that was a health nut that got him to, and he quit eating processed foods, and he's been juicing and all this stuff. And he said that he's been seeing them his whole life. But his brother, he's a twin, but they're fraternal, right? Mm-hmm. But his brother went the exact opposite way, eats Hot Pockets and does all this stuff. 30 pounds overweight, and he's just real unhealthy, and he can't see anything. He doesn't have nothing, no ability at all. I think that is like a measuring stick right there. You know, and I think that the people that are in charge, they really are drinking people's blood and adrenochrome, and I really think it's happening, and I think that they are literally trying to make it to where we can't. Why do you think the Smithsonian swoops in every time they find a giant skeleton?
To hide the Bible, hide the truth, pull off the Great Deception.
Look at this. Paul Williams said something very interesting there, Harley. My ex-wife and her brothers were born with 6 fingers and 6 toes, both 7 foot tall. What is that?
I don't have 6 fingers and 6 toes.
That's the remnants of the Nephilim. That is what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
That blood type you have, though, is interesting, too, because I have a theory about that. I think that a lot of people can have this, but people who have that particular blood type, Merkel was right, and he does his due diligence. I can tell you this. I believe that people who have that almost always have their pineal gland open. I don't think it calcifies. I think it's something that it protects, like, that keeps you from having that calcification. And there are things you can do, folks. There are foods you can eat. There is a diet that you can assume that will literally stop it. And I was on that diet to decalcify, basically eating certain foods that I was reading about. And then those certain foods, they make them give you gout. But it only started after people had the cron. If you know what the cron is, it was a type of the, what would you call it?
It was one of the flavors of 2020.
Yeah, let's put it there. Yeah,
2020.
Taste the rainbow flavors of the plan thing. Okay.
Yeah. The event of 2020.
Yes. When people were walking around like this, gosh, I need a diaper on my
social
face.
distancing, 6 feet apart.
If you stay 6 feet, they can't get you.
Yeah.
It's like there was.
I remember this distinctly. I went into Walmart one time. It was whenever the restriction was that you can go into stores and stuff again. But there was somebody wearing a full on hazmat suit. I was like, these idiots, man. Idiots.
Wow.
Idiots.
I bet you that guy will get a pest control person to come in and spray his whole house, and he's standing right there.
Probably.
But then it's like, oh no, the television says to go, we might get, so let's put on that. I think that all these people who want RFK to stop, they need to just go eat copious amounts of toothpaste.
They don't like it, they can leave.
Right.
That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, you're free to go. I don't know why you're here. Why are you still here?
Go on to Canada. Go get your free health care. Go on.
Yeah.
Go stand in line for 8 years. I mean, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy but I really think, though, that this is by design, a lot of it. I do.
I could see that 100%.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I think, is like all these forever chemicals, all this poison and everything that we eat is designed to cut us off from the spiritual. Okay, it's a dual purpose thing. It's so that physically run healthy, mentally run healthy, but also it's designed to cut us off from perceiving the spirit.
Exactly.
Because when you're more grounded in the material world, you're more subject to spiritual openings, which is that's the main like objective right there. Like that's I think that's like objective number one, like primary objective right there is just to keep everyone subject to spiritual openings, so that it leaves that screw that you can turn on people at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wants to keep you in this world, not in the actual world.
To make you of the world rather than in the world.
That's right.
Exactly.
Dick Richards, because he's from Canada, he says, "Oh, it sucks." It does, because
I'm so sorry.
They're paying for it, and it's not. Yeah, exactly. I'm
But
sorry.
when y'all become our 51st state, all the problems will go away.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know.
We'll make Canada great again.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't want that, because it's going to be one giant blue state.
Yeah, it would just be.
I really don't want that.
Not necessarily. It depends on who's in charge. That's why they're the way they are.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Because I know a lot of Canadians who can't stand the way it is. I mean,
yeah.
And to me, Governor Trudeau, exactly. I think to me, a lot of what's happening, though, is because it's by design. Because who the hell in their right mind is going to politic and fight to stay unhealthy, to stay clamped down and locked down on? Because these people don't know any better. Because all they do is they they watch that box of poison, and it tells them this is what you're supposed to
Yeah.
think.
Defend your masters.
Yeah,
Exactly.
defenders. You know, the Skeksis are telling them to go
Yeah.
and fight like good little gelflings, and they do it. They do it, man.
Oh, everybody's hating the Gulf of America now. It's just like, come on, just get
Yeah.
over it. Like, it's just a name to the freaking ocean.
I mean, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, but if
No,
you
it's not affecting their
Yeah.
everyday life.
but if you decide that you're a woman, then you have to force everyone to call you a different name. So like
that-
it's
let
like
me
it's
tell you,
like it's like what's
that
the
really
difference?
chaps my hind end.
What's the difference? Like you're dead naming, like now dead naming is a bad thing, right? Makes no sense.
Yep. Shay just said, feels good to be among those that are awake and aware and know what's truly going on in reality. Exactly. That's why I wore my We the People shirt tonight. There needs to be change.
Exactly.
And the way the things are right now, I'm telling you, it's all connected. All of it. Everything is connected. These people, they're asleep.
Yep.
They're asleep. And when inevitably, when you talk to that side, people, very few of them actually do watch the show or even are into this kind of thing. And the ones that are, they like do all these mental gymnastics to circumvent the reasoning of why it is the way it is. And they'll find anything they can to latch onto. And I said,
Well,
look,
isn't there a verse that talks about like so was in the days of Noah, there'll be days of Noah again, or something like that? I think there was a Bible verse that talks about that.
no, it's going to be now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Chimeras, they were fighting in Congress to I mean, literally, folks, I'm not even joking. They were fighting to keep this alive, that they could do this legally, make these chimeras, of course, being these cryptids. I don't know if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
These
Well,
assets.
Japan's trying to make human-animal hybrids.
Well, everybody is. And the legislation, if you know, there was a fight in Korea, in South Korea, they had a fist fight about it a few years ago. It was all on Instagram and Facebook, and they showed them punching each other, in their version of Parliament. It's been argued in multiple countries, that this is what they want to do, and they want to be able to use these assets. Transhumanism is a hop, skip, and a jump away. And I think that if they can create, and I'm going to say this is going to sound crazy, but a cyborg, part human, part machine, part wolf,
I believe
you might get something terrifying that's going to come out. You're talking about, the Wolfman meets Terminator. I mean, it is.
that's terrifying.
It is. So when you go out in the woods, Harley, and you've had these encounters, do you carry? Do you carry?
I did. I do now. After having some run-ins with the Dogman, but initially at first, when I had my second encounter, when I was surrounded by 3 Bigfoot, I did carry, and after that I stopped. And after the second Dogman encounter, I did start carrying back again. But the second encounter was literally a week after I started researching, and my wife was with me. Funny part about that, she never did see anything, but she heard it. So we're walking up the trail, and we're on our way back out, and she nudges me on the shoulder. She said, "Babe, look at that." And I said, "What?" She said, "Those sticks over there. They look like something out of a movie." I said, "Well, what in the world are you talking about, woman?" She said, "Those sticks sticking up out of the ground." I said, "All right, I'll go look." And I walked over and I was looking, and these sticks were broken and jabbed into the ground. They were sticking up, and there was 2 logs that were falling over, and you could tell that something was laying in between the 2 logs. And I was like, well, okay. And I stepped it off, and it was like 8.5 feet. And I was like, well, this ain't a black bear. This is probably a Bigfoot. And sure enough, I heard something walking over into the brush, and I hollered at my wife. I said, "Stand right there on the trail." I said, "I'm going to walk back into this direction." I walked in further back in the direction the noise was, and I come across this huge game trail. And there's elk here in East Tennessee now since they've reintroduced them. And, I was kind of like, well, this is probably from the elk. But I got to looking, and there was branches high up that were broken. And I was like, well, okay, this might be something. And I'm standing there in the middle of the trail, and I have this feeling that I need to look to my right. Well, I stopped, and I turned, and I locked eyes on this reddish brown Bigfoot, and he walked right in behind the tree. And I was like, holy cow, this one's a lot closer than my first one. Now, it's about 25, 30 yards away. And all of a sudden, it steps out from behind a tree and it turns, and we're looking straight at each other. And he crouches down in behind this laurel bush, and he peeks his head out of the bush to look at me. And I can see him. He got reddish brown fur, hair, and whatever. And he got these black eyes, gray skin, and we're sitting here making eye contact. He has kind of like a big frumpy nose. It's almost like a gorilla's, but not like a gorilla's.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there locking eyes with each other, and he's looking at me through this bush. All of a sudden, to my left, there was a loud pop and a smack of a branch breaking. And then right behind me, there was like stomp. I don't know if it was stomping in place or if it was charging at me or what. But I know that I had my eyes on one, and there was one to my left, and there was one behind me. So I took off. I ran. And I told my wife, I said, let's go, let's go, let's go. But here's the funny part. And I had my pistol on my right-hand side. So whenever I turned and locked eyes on the one that I seen, my pistol was facing the trail. And then I had him in front of me, one on my left, and one behind me. That's when I realized that there was something more to these things. There was a very, very smart, almost more than intelligence.
And after this particular encounter, you stopped carrying for a while until the Dogman thing?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, when the Dogman happened, I started carrying.
I mean, I could see why you would start up again, but why would you ever stop? Were you afraid that the Bigfoot would take it as a,
Yeah, I was afraid that, if it did come down to it, if I did shoot one, I didn't want to face the consequences of an angry alpha.
Wow.
Because quite frankly, there was a story that just recently got told to me. There was a guide somewhere out west, and there was a guide that was with this guy elk hunting, and they had the elk in their sights. They were getting ready to shoot it. And all of a sudden there was movement over to the left or I can't remember which direction it was of the elk, but the hunter seen it and he took the scope over to it and he was looking, and it was a Bigfoot. And the guy was telling him, don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot. Well, what's the hunter do? He shoots it and drops it dead. And the guide was like, run. The guide was telling him, run, run, run. And he's like, why? And the guide just telling him, run. Well, the guide takes off and leaves the hunter, and the hunter running, trying to keep up. The guy turns around and looks, and what he said was the alpha came up behind this guy and unalived him, tore him apart. And the guy went to the sheriff's office, got the sheriffs out there, and he said this was a bear.
Wow.
And got swept under a rug. So
It happens a lot. I mean, it's always a bear or a wolf or a pack of dogs.
well, there was 2 Dogman attacks here in the town that I live in. Jimtown Road and Carnation Way in Newport, Tennessee.
What year was that?
2021.
2021. And
Tony Aarons and Amber Miller.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your opinion, that was really a Dogman that did that?
I think it was a Dogman. Because the homeless people said that it came out at night and killed them.
Man. And I wonder how many homeless people get preyed on, because, there are people here in Austin that claim that there's vampires preying on the homeless people. There's people claiming they see werewolf type creatures and they see Bigfoot and all this other stuff.
Population control.
Yeah. Yeah. Reptilians.
Entertainment purposes only, YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy. So what else? Do you got anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, let's see. I think I got something else I can show you. Hang on. Let's see if I can find it. I actually found a nest not too long ago. So right here in this area is the entrance of it, and you can see how they've got these branches all bent over, and I could get in there and lay down and have a shit ton of room to move around. So that was pretty interesting to find.
We saw that, Anthony. Remember when we were over there by Spicewood Springs?
Yep.
Me, Anthony, and Nellie walked right into that. So there was like habitation
Exactly like that.
out the wazoo.
And the funny thing is, right on the back side of that is a creek. Just runs right through it. Right.
That's where this was.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, Harley. There was a creek right there, and they were right there on the banks of the creek. And then we went around to the other side of that creek, and we went under this bridge, and there was like broken. It was last winter. Mm-hmm. We did this boots on the ground out there, and there's walking around out in the woods, but there was broken branches that were up about 9 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way that those branches were broken like that.
No. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is an arch, but you can't really tell it. But over on this side, they actually broke a top out of another tree that was like 40 yards away, and they have that treetop holding that arch down.
And I've even heard of people, like there was somebody in Idaho who came upon a Bigfoot doing this back in the 80s, and they were walking around out there with their dog, and they heard the popping and the snapping, and they saw them doing this, like, popping and snapping the trees, and they followed behind them about 40, 50 yards back, but they could see them doing it. Very interesting. There was nothing else that really happened, but she witnessed that with her dog, and she was actually, the dog was very well behaved. She's lucky for her because she was babysitting the dog for her brother and her sister-in-law, and she witnessed this Bigfoot doing that. And she's an older woman now, but she was young at the time, and she said, "Man," she goes, "And now she's never seen a Bigfoot again, or since, before or since." But she's like, "I'll always remember that, the popping and snapping of these branches." That's incredible. And you're getting these photos. Is that the last one, or do you have more?
I've got one more. I'm trying to find it. Hang on a second. Let's see. I have a video. I have one on video. This is kind of hard to tell, but this is a still capture from that video. It's walking from the right to the left, and this is him as he's walking. He walks underneath of this fallen tree. I mean, the dark black figure right here. And this is actually him a couple frames before. I have the video. I can send it to you, but it's kind of hard to show on here because I can't pull up the video, unfortunately. But right here is when he peeks out from around the tree and he looks. I have to adjust it. Stupid screen. I hate this stupid thing. Let's see if I can fix this. Hang on. Technology is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to pull up. Well, right here it is. Maybe. I might get it. Yeah, right here. That's when he looks at me. He's peeking out from around. It actually looks at me in the video, but it's kind of it's blurry, but that's the figure right here in this general area right here. I have the video. It's like 7 seconds. It's not very long at all, but this figure moves from right to left in the video, and I did a recreation of it. That thing cleared that distance in 7 seconds, and it took me over a minute because that brush was so thick. But I can send you the video. Like I said, this is not a very good one of it, but let's see. This was something interesting that I found. So these branches were tied in right here in the middle, and they made an X. So they tied the laurel bushes into those tree branches, and they made an X.
That's weird.
Yeah, something with hands has to do that, not bears. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, you really think a bear does this?
Yeah, bear is always their go-to.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's an attack by a dog man, then a pack of dogs did it.
Oh, it's always the cover up.
And they'll put to sleep some little spitz, some little beagle.
Or dig up a dead dog.
Uh,
That's what they did here for the Newport attacks. They dug up a dead dog that was dead prior to the attacks.
Well, at least they didn't put an innocent dog to sleep for it.
The Knox County Forensics Office, the autopsy actually says unknown animal killed those two people.
And these people, they think that they're harmless. They're always talking. There's one show that they're always doing that on. They're always like, well, it didn't attack you, so they can't be that bad. And I'm just like, man, I wish they would stop with that, because I get witnesses telling me, well, I'll let my kid go down by the creek because, it's not going to hurt them. And I'm like, yes, it will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sound like a fear monger. And they're like, well, I was watching this other channel and, the witness is on there, and the guy said, oh, it ain't going to hurt you. Well, yeah, because he's got an agenda, those are shills. I tell people all the time. I mean, I can't believe the stupidity that's out there.
It's ignorance. It's pure ignorance.
Mm-hmm. It is a blessing and a curse to. I'm positive that I've been around Bigfoot, but I've only caught like a glimpse of one, like, you know, and that was with my wife, and she saw it full on. And people hadn't, I believe it because people have described that in that area quite a bit. And she saw it. She's like, I know what I saw. She's seen one twice in her life. And when I saw the Dogman, that changed. I didn't need to see Bigfoot to know it was real. But before that, I always kind of believed in Bigfoot. I did not believe in werewolves. I didn't believe in anything. I just believed in like maybe there was ghosts because I had some stuff happen, and I believed in you know possibly Bigfoot. But when the old timers would talk about these werewolf creatures, I would laugh. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, whatever, man. I was like, y'all believe? You know, it's like it's so goofy to me, you know. And looking
Crazy
back,
old people.
crazy old people. And then when I saw it, it was like, wow.
The old timers know a thing or two.
Yeah. I got to give my friend credit. He would ask me, what if it's real though? And I said, it's not. And then he was like, but what if? I said, dude, it's not. And then we saw it, and he was like looking at me, and I was looking at him. We were in
Told
shock.
you so.
And he's like, and I was like, yeah. He didn't come and say, hey. He just always questioned what if, you know. And I kept telling him it's not, man. You know,
Well,
and there were these
that's
stories
kind of
of-
how my when I took my buddy George and Robert with me out there, and George had never seen one, and we were walking along, and we split up. It was me and George. We went to the right of the trail and went down to this holler. Robert and his wife kept straight on the trail, and I was in front of George, and I was walking along, and I caught a glimpse of the Bigfoot out of my peripheral. I seen him walking through the laurels, and I stopped and I said, George, there he is. And by that time, he had went behind a tree, and he was just barely peeking out from beside of the tree. And I said, George, there he is. That's a Bigfoot. He said, Harley, that's a shadow. I said, George, that's a Bigfoot. He said, Harley, it's a shadow. I said, no, it's not. I said, stand right here. I didn't walk 10, 15 feet, and I stepped on this branch that sounded like a shotgun going off. This Bigfoot reaches up, braces himself on the tree, and leans down to look for me because he couldn't see me. I was where he couldn't see me. And all I heard George say was, oh, shit. Next thing I know, George is running past me, and I'm just standing there at a loss for words. And I'm like, I guess we're chasing this thing. And we get up to the tree where the Bigfoot was at, and right there in the mud, you could see the perfect 3 toes, but you can see a slight pinky toe and a slight big toe. We actually named this Bigfoot Alfalfa because on that day it was sleeting and raining on us, and his hair was sticking up on top of his head like alfalfa.
wow.
And we
Your
figured
friend
he was
became a
about
believer
8.5.
that day, huh?
Huh?
Your friend became a believer that day.
Oh, well, he had UFO experiences and stuff like that, but he had just never seen a Bigfoot until that day.
Man, tell me about these UFOs that you see around there. Like, what is going on with that?
So there's sometimes when we sit in there, you know, we're hoping to see or hear Bigfoot, but we'll look up in the sky, we'll see like green lights, and they'll just shoot real fast across, and then there'll be red ones that shoot real fast across. The orbs, they'll be like yellow or red, just different colors. There was one time that I was in there was a blue one. They're just really weird. I don't really know much about the UFOs and stuff like that. I don't worry about that kind of stuff, honestly. I just worry about the stuff on the ground. The stuff on the ground can be a little less unforgiving.
Mm-hmm. But you know, those things that are zipping around, do you think that they're craft, or do you think that it's orbs?
The stuff that's floating around through the woods, I think it's orbs. The stuff in the sky, I think, is crafts. Because the orbs are tending to be right in moving through the trees and stuff. But what's in the sky, that stuff's moving way too fast. It's like the orbs that they kind of slowly move through the woods, but what's in the sky is just shooting by.
I wonder why. You know, because you've seen it. So why would it? I don't know. You've seen these things at the same time that others, like you've seen these other phenomena, right? Like you've seen it at the same time. What is your thought on why that is?
I don't know. I really have. I've thought about it. I guess they trust me, and I always tell people, anybody that comes out and hikes with me, I always tell them, keep your mind open, treat the forest with respect, and just keep a clear head. And that's just honestly seemed to work, whether we have an experience or much less see one.
I really think that there has something to do, because I think Merkel asked the right question of you. You know, I think he did, and I think that that has a lot to do with your, like, why people like you see these things. And I've asked people that most people don't know their blood type. I know my blood type, but most people don't, and so they don't. And I think that I think that there's a correlation between that and the calcification of the pineal gland. I know it sounds nuts. And you know, years ago, Harley, when I was doing this, and when we talked on the phone, you and I, we had a good conversation. I enjoyed talking to you.
Oh yeah.
Smart guy, man. And we just,
I appreciate that. Hey, I don't know much.
well, you know, you're a country boy, but you are pretty, you know what you're doing. And so I didn't have to give you a ton of advice. Some people have to tell them, look, you know, be careful, this and that. Not you, you know what you're doing. But whenever we were talking, and one of the things that we talked about, like, you already know your blood type. That's important. You talk to some people, they have no clue. Most people, I'd say, what, probably 80% don't know their blood type, right, Anthony?
Yep.
That's a question we ask pretty odd. Anybody who's been interviewed by me, they know. Or I've messaged them and they're just like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, maybe find out. Some of the people, though, that have found out over the years, one person was, you remember Ernest?
Yeah.
It turned out he was, you know, that RH negative. There's a lot of people that turn out to be that, you know, that they come back after they've had all these experiences. Some of the people from Hernandez Ranch, it turns out that that's their blood type. Their grandfather had that. That's a weird thing. On the Hitchens Ranch next door, that was another thing. They had people with that on one side of their family. It runs through, like, I believe, like, generations, and it has to do. I know it sounds crazy, but it goes back, way back. My wife has a channel she's working on. She's got a lot of stuff in the works, and we're really busy moving and stuff right now. But it's called the Random Files, and one of the subjects she wants to tackle, she's got some ambition. And the thing about her, she's got the will to feed it too. But it's about Egypt and what it has to do with the Grand Canyon.
Oh, now that's a conspiracy theorist to go down. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. And why do so many people have Bigfoot encounters around these sites, these digs where they find these giants? Because I think they were put there.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Kandahar giant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you look at, like, these places where these giants are seen, like, they'll also have Bigfoot activity. They'll have Dogman activity. I wonder if these Dogman were not sort of like the hounds of the Anunnaki. When they were here mining for gold, they may have used them. And like, say, humans got out of line, out of hand, or whatever, because they enslaved us. Whether you believe that they seeded us or created us, or my personal opinion is that we were already here, but they genetically tampered and modified us. That's what I believe. I don't believe that they were the ones that absolutely just created us. I think we were here, but they messed with us. And now, I've thrown out the theories that people espouse. That doesn't mean I believe it. I just say that that's what could be, because there's you got to throw it all out there. You know, the flesh and blood, right, to everything. It doesn't mean you have to accept it. The mark of an intelligent person is to. I've read books about Nazism and communism. It doesn't mean that I'm goose stepping or going around calling people comrade. Right. You know, I just read a book about Mao. Let's all be communists. No, dude. I mean, you can read it without absorbing it and making it your own theories or ideology. It's crazy. But some people act like they can't do that. And that's a human trait. You know, we got to overcome that. But I wonder about this. And it's things that keep me up at night. I'll just sit there, or, you know, I get off of work in the morning, so up in the day, and I'll be sitting there going, like, I got a meeting at 1 o'clock, and it's like 8 a.m. and I'm still thinking about how this all connects. You know, I'm sitting there and I start texting people like Robert Kreider, like, hey, do you know, I mean, you know, whoever, my friends in the field, you know, David Wedley, whatever, and asking questions about, like, why is this? You know, what do you think this is? You know, because I can't get it out of my head. I've had multiple conversations with our mutuals, like Michigan Rob and, you know, Rick Atterstein. You know, I've asked him a ton of questions of, what do you think? What's going on here? Because I am so curious about this. I'm just becoming more and more curious, because the more I learn, the more I want to know. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if these Dogmen were trained to run down humans that escaped, that weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And these overlords, these evil people, these beings, they were giants and they ruled over us. And then you had reptilians that came in and they did what they did. And if you look at the earth as how old it really is, this could have happened so many times. If you were to sit back for 100,000 years, Harley, every single thing that is man-made, every single thing, there's not one thing that's man-made that would not have already disintegrated and dissolved. This microphone, the computers, this phone. Well, this phone's a piece of crap. It'll disintegrate in 5 weeks. But like this, I got this knife here. This is an off-grid. The whole thing would be dissolved to the point where you wouldn't even know that this was once a knife.
Yeah.
Even this, this deer horn, everything that we have, unless it falls into a certain pocket within the earth. Now, we know that going down through certain sediments of the earth, going down about a mile, that's about as far as we can really get. We can go down further, but like for archaeologists, that's the limit, is a little bit more than a mile. They don't know what's below that, but I guarantee you that if you go down below more, you would find all kinds of fossils, possibly fossilized people from bygone eras. Back when everybody did have 6 toes and 6 fingers. And you wonder, let me take this off here. Somebody, Charles V says, do you think the higher breaks, the more of a message to the beta males and an alphas around and challenging or claiming territory?
I think so. Yeah, I could see that, because you could, honestly, I think the further up in the mountains, I think the bigger they can get, because if further up in the mountain elevation, your prey items are going to be bigger, so your predators are going to be bigger. I essentially think here in East Tennessee, maybe a giant alpha male would probably be about 12 foot, I think. But I mean, obviously up in like Canada and stuff like that, 15 foot, if not 20 foot.
I've heard of this, but I've never, I don't know many, I haven't got many reports of people who've seen those though.
Right, they're very rare, because they know how to stay hidden. Something that big, I would be hidden. I'd be an easy target. Yeah, because
if you stand up too high, but I don't doubt that could be. But it's such an amazing thing. A friend of our family, a family friend of ours, saw a giant, what he called a forest giant. That's happened to a few people. But it didn't really look like a Bigfoot. It had like a hairy face. Like all of this was hair right here. This part was exposed, and then it didn't have hair. It had hair, not fur. Whereas Bigfoot, sometimes it seems like it's got like fur all over it, almost like a Dogman.
Right.
It was like hairy, but not furry, and it was reddish brown. And they said that it was about 14 feet tall.
I believe.
I can't imagine that's something that big and massive, and it was hiding in the Northern California forest.
Well, there was not too long ago. There was somebody, my buddies that live over in North Carolina. They were telling me that they had somebody reach out to them about seeing a giant. They said they were, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Klingman's Dome. I think somewhere around in there. They said they were sitting there, and what they seen was a giant walking, like literally through the treetops. And it just disappeared.
Where is Klingman's Dome at? Where's that at?
That's like right outside of Gatlinburg.
Gatlinburg, Tennessee, yeah. That area is so wooded too. There's no telling.
Oh, dude, I love it out here, man.
I've been through that area a few times.
I live like 40 minutes from Gatlinburg.
Wow. So did you go to the Gatlinburg conference?
I did. That was my first conference that I ever went to, July 27th of last year. I had so many people come up to me and know who I was and just came up and started talking to me. It was just so real and awesome.
That's awesome.
Getting to talk to David Pilates too, and sitting there talking with him for about 10, 15 minutes was awesome. And just seeing everybody was truly awesome. And meeting Martin for the first time, because me and Martin had always talked over Messenger. And I went up behind him and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "What you doing, old boy?" He turned around real quick. He said, "Oh, brother, you're here." He said, "Let me give you a big old hug." He said, "I love you, brother."
Yeah, Martin's a good guy. I like Martin. I've never had a problem with Martin. He's been at both of my conferences. The first time he spoke was at my first conference. That was nice. So Lawrence Morgan says the furthest they have dug was 8 kilometers. Now they can dig really deep. They have diggers that can go deeper than that, but archaeologically they can't really study anything. They say they can go down a mile or so, but I am really doubtful on how much they can really do. And we don't know how many fossils are down there. I mean, I know guys that work in the oil fields who pulled up some like really interesting things. I had some friends out.
Hey, I don't know if this is fake or not, but did you see the new Doge thing?
No,
the DOGE thing.
Oh, the Dodge. Yeah.
No, about the dinosaurs.
Yeah, no. Oh, you're talking about the Department of Justice file. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the DOGE.
What? Oh, okay. What is this?
Apparently, they got a dinosaur project.
What?
Yeah.
What
apparently, they got like the Chimera thing, but dinosaurs. Apparently, they found like living tissue in some of the fossils, and they're trying to do Jurassic Park. There's literally 6, about to be 7 movies on why that's a bad idea. You can't go and play God.
Yeah. Where is this found at?
So they found this being
it's on
funded?
TikTok. It popped up on my For You page earlier. This guy, Joe Ditzel, posted it on there. It's called the Dinosaur Project.
I've not really been on TikTok. I don't know. I'll have to check that out and look into it. There's so many different things going on at one time. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, it's almost like they're distracting you from what's really going on.
Yeah, what's really important. Because there's this other thing going, like, okay, have you heard of the Lacerda files? I don't know if you know what that is. Okay, you got to look into the Lacerda files, because the Lacerda files, this guy actually, or girl, we don't really know. I think it's a guy, but if you look up the Lacerda files, and I'll send you a link in private, this person was claiming that they were a reptilian, and they actually said that the iguanodon, what we thought of as the iguanodon, what was archaeologically put together as a type of bipedal dinosaur, actually wasn't a dinosaur. It's a type of reptilian, and it's an actual race of beings that live within the earth.
Holy cow. That's
and
crazy.
We thought that it was, and so them taking dinosaurs and using their DNA, there is another. This happened in southern Mexico. It was a Mesoamerican dig. They found, and I can't remember the name of it. Anthony, see if you can look it up. A Mesoamerican dig where they found like pottery, and they found like paintings and drawings, and one of them was of a person riding a triceratops.
Oh, well, there's an ancient painting from somewhere over in like Europe, where in the background you can see what looks like 2 long-necked dinosaurs.
Probably. I mean, and there were people that were claiming that they carbon dated a triceratops hip bone, and it was actually 32,000 years old. That changes the history.
That changes history.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and you have this company, Colossal Biosciences, which, if I'm not mistaken, they're in Texas, are they not?
I don't know what that is. Colossal.
They are bringing back the woolly mammoth, the thylacine, the dodo, pretty much all extinct mammals and birds.
That's the company that's doing that, because I knew that was happening.
Yep.
They wanted to do a smilodon and a woolly mammoth. Okay.
Yeah, they're bringing back the mammoth, the thylacine, and the dodo. Thylacine is the Tasmanian tiger.
But they're having to use other mammals to actually be
like a surrogate mother, like the Asian elephant. And they're technically going to be a hybrid because they won't be pure.
They won't be pure. They said that they'll look like them.
Yeah, they'll look like them, but they won't be pure.
Yeah. It's hard to judge, though, what they could be. When you were saying the DOG, I was thinking of Dodge. I was thinking of the Department.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Dodge.
Thinking of everything but what you were saying. Yeah, because there's so many different things going on with those letter designations. But I guess DOG,
the Department of Governmental Efficiency.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So that is what that is. Okay.
Yeah, they're talking about dinosaurs. They found a dinosaur project. Apparently, they're doing like the chimeras and stuff, but with dinosaurs.
And Slim Jimmy hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, playing God, you're gonna feel his wrath.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, in 1944, in Guanajuato, Mexico, is where they uncovered some ceramic figures that depict humans alongside or riding dinosaur-like creatures.
Mm-hmm. And
That's a real thing.
that flew for a while until they decided that it didn't match mainstream science. And then they attacked a good guy, Graham Hancock. He got attacked viciously because he said that, look, these sites, Malta was once connected, you know, and all this other, and they were like, no. But it's obvious because they were, and there was a flood.
Yep.
And they want to say that it didn't happen, but we know scientifically that there was a flood.
Yep.
And
there
there was
dinosaurs on the ark.
Yeah, there was a Noah there, and then, but you know, there were multiple Noahs. In fact, it's to date, I think they said that there are 1,440 different flood stories from different cultures, and I do believe there might have been more than one Noah, but there was a Noah, and it really did happen, and I really believe that he was one of many. But I think that his ark did land on Mount Ararat. I believe that really happened. Now, whether or not it was DNA that was collected, or maybe it was actual animals, I don't know. I mean, who knows?
Right. Yeah.
The translations are so freaking long ago, it's hard to say. But I mean, who's to say what's really, you know, we don't know. That's why we're doing this show, and that's why we do what we do, because we're trying to figure it out.
Yep. And bring awareness is the biggest thing. Awareness is the biggest thing out of all this, you know.
Well, the biggest thing is not getting eaten out there, Harley. You need to be careful.
Yeah, aside from that, Josh, like the biggest thing is with me, you know, some people really don't know what they're doing out in the woods. You know, oh, you can go and hike all day long, but you need to know the true dangers of what's actually out there. And that's the biggest thing with what I'm doing. If I can keep somebody safe and keep them from acting an idiot in the woods, I've made my day. If I can keep somebody safe and come back home the same way they left, that's my whole end game.
Yeah, and you're out there and you're doing what you do, man. You interesting guest, folks. Harley Owens. How can they get in touch with you?
Bigfoot reports and data, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, pretty much all social media platforms, TikTok. I had a question for you. I wanted your take on this.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they are from Nephilim descent, and if they have so much human DNA, do you think maybe that they could get redemption, or maybe not? If they have more human DNA than angelic.
I think there were Nephilim that were left alive after the flood. We know this because the Bible as history makes a lot more sense. It doesn't always make sense, some of the things that I believe the priesthood attributed to who or what God was. Because and this is me, I don't think that all of that's God. I think that's a lot of priests, the Hebrew priests, and then later the Catholic priests. I'm not attacking the Jewish faith or the Catholic faith. I'm just saying they did some tampering. They did. And then the Protestants put their own spin on it, and they did some tampering. But I don't think that discounts who or what God is. I think they just changed it, you know. But we got to be careful because they try to say, well, this is the word of God. But in the book of Joshua, we know that Caleb and Joshua, they sent spies, and they encountered these giants that made them look like grasshoppers. And so if the book is to be believed as historical, which I believe a lot of it is, that speaks that they were there, that they were actually there. And in the Ethiopian Bible, it actually talks of Noah having had helpers that were giant men. They were, which I think were the Nephilim, and they were allowed to redemption by helping Noah and some of the ark. To build the ark, yeah. And I believe that there were. I think that after the flood, they continued to exist. I believe the red-haired giants still exist today.
Oh yeah.
That's why you see these stories of them in Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan,
Afghanistan,
all the stands basically, and the stands have them, you know. So, but I think that they're still around. That's why people, you know, see, like a family friend. I can't say his name, but he did tell us that he saw a giant in the northern redwood forest of California. He said it was 14 to 15 feet, at least 14 feet tall. Hard to say that could be. I mean, and it's his job. He has a job that he can't. One day when he retires, maybe he'll talk about it. But you got these people that can attest that these giants are real, and that we find their skeletons, and some of them will actually get tested, and they will have fallen into this period where they weren't dead. And this
Right.
was well after the deluge. You know, this wasn't antediluvian. This was after.
Mhm.
And so you wonder about this, and I have to ask those questions. Like, I had a woman up in Washington. Do you remember the two ladies? They were sisters, Anthony, and they were in a cult, and they had a guy. Let me see if you remember this.
Mhm.
There was a guy that was trying to habituate the Bigfoot, and he was giving the women to the Bigfoot. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was horrific. It was a
Mhm.
horrific thing. Yeah. But get this. One of those women that came forward recently, about maybe just 3 or 4 weeks ago, hasn't even been a month, I believe.
That recent?
Yeah, she came forward. Now this happened back in the 70s, but
Oh,
well, late 70s, early 80s. It was on the border with Canada, and she said that one of their sisters, they call them, they're not really sisters, they just called them that. They were all, but they were all being manipulated by these two guys, and they were just, it was back in the hippie culture, and they were weird, and they were doing drugs and stuff. It was their parents' fault. But these young teenage girls, one of them was taken by these Bigfoot creatures, and they weren't taken to cohabit with Bigfoot. They were taken to these giants by the Bigfoot. And that was something that she told me that the other two sisters didn't have happen to them. They said that they knew people who had it had happened to. This is one of the women. She says that she was taken, and these giants took her. They didn't do anything to her, but they kept her there. But she saw other women that were taller than her, but about half the height to about 3/4 the height of the giants. And those women were really mean to her. And they looked very native looking. The giants themselves had an ashen gray skin. It's a whole story. It's crazy what she was telling me. Now, this woman is now like in her early 80s, but she still talks very clearly. She kind of gets sidetracked a little bit, you know, and it's hard getting a hold of her. She goes to bed really early, which is hard for me because by the time I'm getting going, she's already going to sleep. But I did manage to talk to her, and when she was telling me this, it was blowing my mind. I was like, wow, this is something that is so intriguing because we thought that the Bigfoot were taking the women, but they were taking them to these bigger beings that were taller, that did not look like them. They looked like men, but that they were giants, and they had ashen gray skin. Now, that could have been something that they put on their skin because we know that the Bigfoot reports we've gotten around here, they look like they put ashes on themselves. So one day, Anthony, my brother, Scorpion, and Tony, and Nellie, we were all spitballing and talking about these Bigfoot reports. And it might have been Nellie. I think somebody said, you know, where are they getting the ashes from? That would speak to them having used fire.
right.
You know, or they're going up to fire and they're putting it on themselves. And Anthony, you were the one that said that it was, or no, I'm sorry, it was Tony. Tony was the one that said that it was maybe to ward off bugs, you know, to get them off of the bugs off of them.
Their own bug spray, kind of.
Yes. And so you're going like, whoa. And so it just kind of goes down the rabbit hole of what these are. And these beings are seen around Apache Pass. That's what we were doing out there, was doing some boots on the ground. I hate that term because it doesn't, you know, it's not like I'm wearing boots and I'm out there on, you know.
It's so blatant. It's just bland.
Yeah. But
Well,
I mean,
it's
you
kinda
guys
like
are
stolen valor. Like,
yeah, I'm not actually out there. I don't have a machete like, boy, Crocky, I'm going to find these Bigfoot out here. You know, there you go. I have one, but I'm not out there like chopping down, you know, I'm just walking around places where people have seen them, you know. And it did get real when we heard some noises, you know, and then Nellie took a picture. That was a beautiful day. Nothing happened. And then we get these weird looking faces in the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That's not pareidolia either. One of them looks just like a wolf's head. I mean, you know, it's just like what Abe Seas and you and Bettina Moss, you're all cut from that same cloth. You guys have that same ability. You take a picture, something appears. And I bet you anything, if you go out there and you just started taking random pictures, and this is just a suggestion, you do what you want. But I bet you anything, you would come up with some hits, especially because of your blood.
I do get pictures a lot of the times, and there's always something strange in there. Yeah.
This is weird. Right when I said that, I felt like something rubbed my head. I'm not even joking. I felt like something touched my head. I tell you what, when we were moving stuff out of that storage today,
Freaking say hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hey,
She
Oh.
just got back from the gym.
I kept thinking I was going to see a duende. I was like, you know, in the storage
She just
facility.
got home from the gym.
Oh my God.
What was today? Was it leg day, upper body? What was it?
Yeah, it was glutes and legs.
Oh wow, that is the most
Painful.
brutal day. But you know what? You don't have to do it again for a while. So
Yeah, my legs, I feel like noodles.
yeah,
You should have seen me
legs.
walking down the hill.
that's the hard day right there, man. Let me tell you. But yeah, I wonder about that. You know, I stay up thinking
I
about
might
this.
go to.
Put it all
Sorry,
together.
I might go to Kenzie's if she's close and get some chicken noodle soup because she made some.
Okay,
And
that's
it
fine.
looks so good.
All right, that's fine. Go on.
Do you have enough for the rest of the audience? You got to have 551 bowls of it.
Yeah. 551 bowls.
But anyways, so Harley, I'm going to let you go, man. Dude, it was great having you on. I got to jump off early because I got to go finish moving. But dude, I was really looking forward to this interview. I talked about it all week, and now it's all
You
it was
got it
cracked.
done, man. I'm excited.
Yeah,
you got
about
a
lot to
your
offer.
man.
Awesome, dude. And anytime you want to come on, you know, and sometimes we do open lines, and if I have a show and there's something you want to say, you want to jump on as a co-host, you'd be my guest.
All right,
All right,
I'll
I'll
be
do it.
back.
All right,
I
I'll
gotta
let
go
you.
get some.
And a few other people like Abe, y'all have open invitation on the show.
I
So,
appreciate
you know,
that, Josh.
You guys want to jump on and add something to it, or just be on the TV, whatever? It's all good, man. Great guy, guys. Harley Owens, check him out. He's doing some real work, some real boots on the ground, and I'm telling you, some of these pictures are really compelling. I like it. I'm glad you brought those on.
Yeah,
And,
you're very
Hey,
welcome.
you know where my wallet is?
No.
I need it. There's cop sirens everywhere
Oh,
out there.
gosh. Well, I don't know. All right. Well,
It happens.
Thank you.
Tell Rick and Bobby and everybody I said, hey, really good people.
Oh, they told me to tell you, hey, I completely forgot.
You don't have to get all.
Great people.
They told me to tell you, hey, I completely forgot at the beginning, but yeah, I'll tell you today.
Awesome people. Okay, Harley, I'll see you, man. I'm going to run. I'll see you.
All right, we'll see you, Josh.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So Harley Owens, everybody, pretty neat stuff he's got. You know, I had talked to him the other day, and we've been messaging back and forth for a while, and I wasn't disappointed. You know, I wasn't. Very real guy, you know.
And by the way, the link to subscribe to his channel is pinned at the top of the chat.
Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those people that, you know, I share the stage. I don't care. You know, these people want to come on, you want to talk, you want to do whatever you want to do. I'm whatever. The more information that gets out there to you, the better. I mean, the more that people can, you know, I've been all over the place on YouTube, just chilling, looking and watching people's live streams, and I see paratroopers and other people's chats and doing. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, because you're going to find more information to back up what I'm saying. I promise you, you're going to find everything I'm talking about. It's out there, right? You'll find it out there, you know. I just think that the more we find, because I strive for this, and I really want this to be the case. I want our audience to be the smartest audience on YouTube, and I think we're well on our way. The more we get people like Harley, the more you get people. You know, go check out these other channels. Spread PRT everywhere. You know, the paratroopers. We have something special here. You can watch other people's shows and watch mine too. It doesn't matter. Check out Monica Rollins. What is it? Paranormal Planet, right?
Our Paranormal World.
Paranormal Planet. That was the one I wanted as our
Yeah.
Paranormal Planet, and y'all shot it down.
No, it was Haunted Planet.
I wanted Paranormal Planet too.
Yeah.
And my fifth choice was what y'all chose.
Yeah.
Well,
it worked out.
I'm still bitter.
Well, suck it up.
They don't tell me what to do. All right. All right. So, anyways, the bottom line is this. I want people to go out there. I want you to experience what's out there, because then you'll see what I'm talking about. There is so many. Let's see here. I watched the documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek, on YouTube. Yep, Eric Palacios. And in the comments, many people said the PRT brought them there. Yeah, go check it out. Go watch A Flash of Beauty with Jill Rimenschneider. She's a big supporter of the show. Go check it out. Go check out these other channels. Check out that episode of Mr. Ballin. He's got all kinds of stuff. If you're into true crime, he's good too. Tex does true crime too. Texas Front Porch, he's good. And of course, Merkel. I mean, he does this full time. I can't do this full time like he does, but he's puts everything into it. And he's got a lot of good stuff on there. There was another channel. What in the heck was it called? Yeah. It was affiliated with Ballin.
Was it called War Stories? Something like that.
What was it called?
War Stories.
War Stories.
I think that was like the name of a segment on the channel.
I can't remember the name of it.
It was something War Stories. Something
War Stories. Something War Stories. Anyway, the guy had a episode on there. Somebody sent me a link to it. It's how I found it. And it said, check this out. And it was a soldier who he was at, I believe it was Pendleton, Camp Pendleton.
Wartime Stories.
Wartime Story. There you go. Wartime Stories. Check it out. That guy's got a great channel too. I've now seen 4 episodes in the last couple of weeks. I get a chance. I watch. I never get to do a whole episode. I fall asleep because I'm too busy. But dang, man, he's got some good stuff. You know, I've actually been able to watch straight through 4 or 5 episodes. Otherwise, I'm always asleep. I start, but he's got some good stuff. And there was one I watched part of it, and I didn't finish it. It was about the Oswing, and then I found out the Skinwalker one, that was him too. I went back and I found that episode. There was one about a skinwalker that turned into like this bug-like being when they were doing this tribal dance at the Navajo reservation. And then this was something that J.C. Johnson, late J.C. Johnson, I've talked to multiple people who were friends with J.C. I personally didn't talk to him about this, but he said the same thing. There was a story. Somebody got hit by a car, and it turned out go check it out. It's on a channel called Wartime Stories, and it's animated. It's really cool, right? I mean, if you come to me and you tell me you want to know information, I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm not that guy. There you go. Another person, another good friend of mine, Lance Hightower, Monster 411. Check him out. Check out his stuff. Bettina Moss, too. I wish she would come back. She had a lot of good stuff. Good guests. Abe Seas, Spiritual and Cryptid Encounters with Abe Seas. Josh Nanoki, of course, great friend of mine. And then, of course, Mysterious Middle East. That's a good one. I've watched a couple of their episodes too, man. And I mean, not a whole bunch. I love those channels, but I don't. Esoterica is another one. He's a rabbi. Good stuff, dude. They get deep down the rabbit hole, folks. And I like I said, I never really get to watch the full episodes. I'll start to watch them, and then I'm like, and I'm out. And then my wife is like, you go to sleep with her, you fall asleep with her, because bless her heart, she tries to watch a movie with me, and I'm like, I'm so tired all the time. I'm like, look, I'm a million hours a week. That sounds crazy because there's not a million hours a week. So I go into alternate realities, and and I learn from. I'm like Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
With the hands. And but yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there, man. A lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good stuff. That's why when you have so much good information out there that's being delivered to you, that's why I try to be, the only thing I can do that's different is, just be me. I'll bring some humor. Another good channel is the Y-Files.
Oh yeah,
I've seen several of his episodes. Sometimes, though, I disagree. With his debunking, he gets a little too much. And then sometimes I think that he does, because it's hard to go in depth in 30-40 minutes.
Yeah.
With all the subjects go way deep, and he doesn't bring anybody's encounters. That's the only thing. Only knock on him, but he seems like a really cool guy. I've watched his live stream. It's kind of like mine. But yeah, and my wife says, I love the Y-Files. Yeah. I used to not like the fish. Now he's kind of grown on me. My wife has been watching him. Kristen says that fish is annoying. And now he says, yeah, Hecklefish grew on me. Yeah, he kind of grew on me too, like ragweed. There's so many of them out there, folks. And then here's a list of our really close friends there. You could just check them out. And, you know, sometimes they'll reach out to me and I don't have time to respond, and I'll be like, oh, shoot, I missed it. Don't be offended if you're a channel or somebody and you want to exchange information. I'm not ignoring you. I got a million things going on, folks. And sometimes I'll reach out to people and they'll take a week to get back with me. And it's just the way it is. I don't care. I'm not, and I'm never going to hide information from you. If there's information to be found, believe me, you know, I'm going to throw it out there. But tomorrow, we got some very unique stuff, unique to Paranormal Roundtable. Anyway, I'm pretty sure these people haven't given their stories to somebody else yet. Eventually, they make their way out there into the ether, and everybody's, you know, heard it already. But this will be first. But these are people's encounters that they had in storage, couple of them that were storage facilities. Really creepy stuff. Really creepy stuff. Can you imagine running one of these places and it becomes haunted because somebody moves some stuff in there? I would not want that. I would not want that at all. So that's going to happen. And then we have a story that was given to us by a guy in Georgia who was doing renovations, cleaning up a cemetery. They had to knock a fence down and expand it, and they purchased some area. And things got weird, you know, really weird. So that's what's happening tomorrow. If we have time, I'm going to look and see how I can fit it in, but there's another Dogman encounter in there. Basically a plethora of paranormal. Okay. What we would call paranormal, I was going to say soup. But then tomorrow night after the show, go over to Jason Bland's Paranormal Soup. I'm going to be on with him and Tex from Texas Front Porch. It's going to be my honor to have him on there. And then the following week will be Jason Bland will have BMR on. And so me and Jason will be basically co-hosting Paranormal Soup. And I'll be doing that for the next few weeks. So check us out tomorrow night. We'll be starting about 7:30, maybe 8 at the latest. It depends. I got to move a lot of stuff. But hopefully 7:30, 8, it'll be around that time. We'll get started, and then I'll jump on with Jason for a couple of hours tomorrow night. So, yeah, we got a lot of stuff on tap going on. And there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, the giveaway. So if your name is in green and you've done the right thing and become a member, okay, unlike Kendra and Jordan and no one being the name of the person, I like you, I care about you, but I'm very disappointed your name is not in green. I don't know. Anyways, so we're gonna have a paranormal potluck. That's what it is tomorrow night. But I don't like to name it that because people will be like, what is this? So I don't know what the title will be. We'll figure it out. But tomorrow night we're gonna have a bunch of stuff happening. Sunday night, it's Sunday Fun Day. We're gonna have fun tomorrow evening. So if your name is in green, okay, we're going to do, and if we don't have the particular hoodies, we have other hoodies we might be able to get. I got to order a bunch more 3Xs because you guys gobbled them up. But yeah, for the giveaway. So, and if you're a Patreon member and you've been patiently waiting, Monday, we have them all right here. The books are signed. They're ready to go. Everything's going to be shipped off on Monday. Well, I think, isn't Monday President's Day or something like that? Is that correct?
I don't know.
If not, then Tuesday. Let's plan for Tuesday. Tuesday, everything will be sent out there. So your Patreon stuff will be on its way. I agree, Melissa. 3X is very comfortable unless you're me. I have lost so much weight, though, these shirts now. I'm like, I can fit into 4X comfortably, but I still have a bunch of 5Xs. And, I had gotten down to the point where I could fit into a 3X, but it was like, so I was at a 4X, and then it was working out. My shoulders got bigger. I had like a lot of mass up in here. Luckily, it wasn't down there, but it was up here, and I had to like go up to a 5X. But I think I've lost some muscle mass now too. Eating less, just not being as hungry, and going through health issue after health issue. So let's see here. Who hasn't won? If you're in green, let me know. First, we'll go with who hasn't won, and then if that doesn't work, we'll go with who has. But I haven't been a member long. It doesn't matter, Frost G. You can be a member immediately, and then you can win. Frost G says, I have not won. Okay, so tell Frost G what they got to do.
So all you have to do is just send an email to joshturner@prtpodcast.com. Make sure you say that your YouTube handle, say that you won the giveaway, and give us your shirt size and your mailing address, and we'll ship your stuff out.
Yep. And so we need 2 more people here to choose. Come on, let's go. Have you set up the new email yet?
Not yet.
And I don't blame you. I'd be aggravated if it wasn't for so much we got going on.
Yeah.
Marlo, I believe didn't Marlo, he got his stuff sent out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your stuff would have been sent out yesterday?
I think it would.
Yeah.
That would be. Yeah.
It was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Marlo, your stuff was just sent out yesterday, so be patient. It should be coming.
Just be checking your mail or wherever you get packages.
Melissa says, I love my PRT t-shirt. Headtrip says, I've never won, but always wanted everyone else to win. Why would you not want to win? Do you want to win? Josie says, good show tonight. I thought it was good.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to win, Headtrip, are you in Canada or something like that? Is that why? Because what we're going to start doing, folks, is simple. If you win, we're going to send you $40, which is more than enough to buy a hoodie, because we have a meeting with Seven Clay, our new distributor. It'll be official going on Wednesday. We will be going and signing the deal with them, and they'll become our new distributor along with several other channels. I think there's going to be like literally 10 channels all together, and we're all going to be in one catalog, and we're going to have the same logo, and they can I'll tell them how it works, and they can get their stuff shipped to people from all over the world too.
Yeah.
Canada is hard because they have like tripled the price of what it costs. To send you a hoodie is about $89 right now. It's ridiculous.
Also, Bryce, yes, we sent your stuff out with
Yes.
this last round of mail offs. I remember seeing your stuff.
I saw his name on there.
Yeah.
Tara, did you have you not won? Have you not gotten anything from us? Because you gave us that wonderful care package. Just message me, Tara, and tell me what you want. Okay. And remember, if you're a Patreon member, you get one of those amazing tumblers. Now that is something that when those are unveiled, that's going to be great. But we have so many things going on. It's just like I can't. My distributor's been waiting forever for me to go up there and finish talking to them, and that's why we're doing it on Wednesday. Because right now we have boxes of stuff. We have a tray. We have like to follow a path to get up to our rooms. I'm not even joking. It's crazy. You know. Okay, Madeline says she was one of the recent mail-offs, so she should be getting something soon. And Madeline and Tony took care of that. Cody Edmondson says, I have not won. Now, your name is not in green, Cody, but I know you. And if you want something, just hit me up. I don't do that for many people because it's not fair to people whose name is in green, but I'll make an exception for you, Cody. Headtrip says, I would like a shirt. Well, send me the information and make sure you specify that you want a shirt, right? And I believe we have another set of hats now, too, don't we? Didn't we pick some up the other day? I thought we had a whole new
yeah,
batch.
I think so.
Are they in there?
I think they are.
Okay. Anyways, folks, that's it for tonight. Laura Gittins says, boo. Boo, Laura, have you won? Because instead of saying boo, say, I haven't won. Sarah says, I won the last show. You could send my stuff to Cody. We could send something to Cody. We could send something to you. We could send something to whoever. Laura says, I'd love to win. I'm green. Good. You win. You win. Cody says, I just joined the Patreon. Good. So in 2 months, Cody, you'll be getting a Patreon package. But in the meantime, I'll send you something. Give me your size. And as long as it's not a 3X, we have it. I'll give you a hoodie. All right. Tara says a hoodie 2X. Thank goodness it's a 2X because we're out of 3Xs. We had 15 of those 3Xs. They went so fast.
Yeah.
They went so fast. It's unbelievable. I love giving the stuff away. It's a good time. It's great. It's a good reason to show up. If nothing else, you're just like sitting there waiting for the noise to stop, the rambling. You're like, oh, cool. Now they're doing the giveaway. Awesome. I thought that guy and his friend would never shut up.
It's like sitting through a timeshare just so you can wait for the free stuff at the end.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did that multiple times. I used to give away TVs. I had 3 of them. I'm not even joking. I went once a year to this one I heard in New Braunfels, right here to the lake. What's it called? Canyon Lake.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and I would just put my head down like this. And I'd be like, can I get my TV? And they would get so mad. They'd be like, fine. But one guy, he got so mad, he hit his hand on the table and hurt his hand. He's like, fine, go get your damn TV. And another guy grabs him and spins him around. And I'm just like, geez, guy seems like he's dangerous. Me and my brother are just sitting there looking at him stupid. Finally, they let us leave so we can go get our TV. The TVs were little crappy ones too, man. I said, man, this is crap. But they give you a coupon book too, and with a bunch of free stuff in it. So I was like, that's cool. You know? But looking back on it, it was like, I think I just like driving out there. Debbie says, I love your show, even if you didn't do the giveaways. Thank you, Debbie. Wolf, any Cupid stories? I can honestly say I don't have any Cupid stories. I don't have any. If somebody has any, send them to me. I'd love to be able to retell something. That's weird. I don't eat sugar, Dick. So sugar. Dick Richards. I don't eat sugar, so I don't. I try to.
Got to make sure to say his last name when you refer to him.
You got to say Dick Richards. I don't eat sugar, Richards. All right, guys. Thank you to everybody who donated. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Thank you to everybody who became a member. It's worth it for the $5. All you got to do is just join and then say, I've never won. And then we send you something. And if somebody doesn't, if we don't find somebody who says, hey, I've never won, then we just give it to somebody who has. And you get more stuff. So that's how the giveaway works. What's up, James? Haven't seen you. James Ostrada. You weren't around for a while. Now you've been showing back up. Yeah. And then Maddie says here, if you were chosen for tonight's giveaway, please send your YouTube handle, full name, date, year one, shirt size, and mailing address to joshturner@potpodcast.com. Pretty soon we'll be using a different email address, but for now, use that one. Okay. One of the reasons why I'm having a hard time to keep it because the stories come pouring in and they bury that, the people who won. And also, if you're RH negative blood type, let me know. Right? So we'll haunt you. Just kidding. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow night, we're going to be here again tomorrow night. That's what's cool about being on Saturday instead of Friday. I hope everybody had a great Valentine's, right? And I hope you had a good day, a good time, whatever, with your love. And if you didn't, well, hopefully you're with someone that loves you, cares about you. And then, you know, tonight we did the show with Harley, and tomorrow we're going to be back on. So we'll see you. Thank you and good night. I got to run, folks. Love you.